Hi everyone. My name is Kimberly T. I was a senior at Lynbrook High School last year and recently graduated. And this year I'm going to Stanford University, which is just in Palo Alto. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about college applications and high school experience. I know it's really confusing for a lot of people, especially if they're like the first child going through the process. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is that the most important thing is that there really is no formula in how to get into a top college. Everyone gets in for different reasons, and colleges just want to see something special in you. So everything that I'm saying right now is just advice for how I think you can maximize your chances of getting into a college. But you have to know that it's no longer a guarantee anymore, and there's some degree of randomness involved in anything you do. So a few things that I'm going to cover, and this is all on your sheet right here, is first I'm going to talk about the stuff that I did in high school and how I think you can perhaps make the most of your 4 years in high school. Then I'm going to talk about how admissions officers view college applications, the steps they go through, and then how they evaluate each portion. After that, I'm going to talk about each part of the application itself and what you can do to make each part look the best. And then just a couple of tips for getting through high school and the college application. And then a lot of you ask questions on the registration forms, and I'll go through and answer those as well. And I have a tendency to talk a little quickly sometimes, so if at any point you don't know what I'm saying, because my parents sometimes don't know what I'm talking about, then just raise your hand and tell me, and then I'll be sure to slow down. So these are the main things that I did in high school. I was involved in speech and debate for all 4 years. I joined as a freshman, became an officer sophomore year.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt. Do you think you can send a PPT to us at the end?
Can I do that?
Okay, so we have to write it down.
Yeah, sorry, I'll go a little bit slower, and I'm going to talk about it throughout, so I think it'll stick in your memory better by the end. So I was in speech and debate for all 4 years, like I said, became an officer my sophomore year. Then junior, I became vice president, and then senior year, I was elected president of my high school team. And something that I think was really valuable about speech and debate was that not only did it just give me better communication skills in general, which helped me then apply for the San Jose Youth Commission and apply for a bunch of different other stuff, but I think it's also just something that in general looks fantastic on college applications because they know how much time and effort speech and debate takes. And they know exactly how well you're trained for college if you're in speech and debate, because of the fact that you learn how to research, how to write, how to speak, how to analyze different topics, and just being in speech and debate I think is really helpful in competing in competitions. The next thing that I was involved in was the San Jose Youth Commission, and I was just explaining this to a couple of parents earlier, but what this is it's a type, or it's a section of city government, and it's the only part in which youth are actually allowed to be involved in. So the way the structure of city government works is that there's a mayor and city council at the very top. Below each city council member and mayor, they have a youth commissioner, which is just their teenage counterpart in city council, and we interact with them and tell them about the youth input within their district because it's really hard for them to reach out to us sometimes. Below that, there is a council for each youth commissioner, so just a group of students who help the youth commissioner in whatever they need to do. And below that are just the rest of the students that they represent. So I was the District 1 youth commissioner, so I was directly below the city council member. So I always interacted with him and his staff members. I had monthly meetings with them. And then I also led the youth council that was under me. And I think this is something really good because it's something not offered within the school, and I'm going to talk about this a little later, but it's really important to take initiative outside of what's offered at your school to show how you're able to take opportunities and use resources and take initiative to find things yourself. And it was also just a really great experience to be able to meet and represent 23,000 youth within our district. The next thing I did was that I founded a literary magazine called Overture Literary Magazine. It's based in Miller Middle School, and a branch was recently added to Hopkins Middle School as well, which is in Fremont. And what it is it's just a literary magazine for middle school students, and it was the first, I think, public middle school magazine in the Bay Area. And I think that this was really valuable because I really like to structure my college application around writing and around how much I enjoyed giving back to students in my community. And by starting this literary magazine, I was able to have meetings every month with students at Miller, teach them a little bit about creative writing and art, and then every month I would publish it online. And it got really good feedback from the students because they really enjoyed being able to have a place to do their creative abilities. And then we got a lot of press coverage. We reached out to a lot of different organizations. So we got it in a magazine called Silicon Year magazine. We got it on the city council members' website. We got it in like India West or something like that, and a bunch of different press sources. And we also applied and got a grant from State Farm Insurance for $500 to continue our magazine. And something I did on the outside that wasn't really an organization based was I did a lot of writing in my free time. So I've written articles and just different stories for like the Huffington Post. I did it for San Jose Mercury News. I did it for CTY's Imagine magazine. And I wrote for a couple of different literary magazines in both print and online form. And I participated in several essay competitions as well and won awards there. So those are the main things I did in high school. And as you can see, they sort of have a general theme. It's just about, I don't know, like writing and being involved in the community in some way, shape, or form. So speech and debate, not only do I have to write my own cases and present them, but I also have to manage the middle school branch and the high school branch. So I learned a lot about giving back to the students there. Overture Literary Magazine was about writing, but I also helped students as well. San Jose Youth Commission, it was a lot about interacting with other people and then giving back to the students within that district as well. So there's sort of a theme to everything that I did. So now I'm just going to talk a little bit about the different parts of a college application. So I know for a lot of at least first year or like first students that are going through the process don't really know what it looks like yet. I didn't know what it looked like as a freshman either. So some things to remember is that once I already said that randomness is involved, so you can never guarantee your admission into any top colleges. The most you can do is to show that there is some sort of passion that you have and to let them know that you will take advantage of the resources that the school has to offer. The next thing is that admissions officers are human too. I've talked to a couple of them and they tell me that they do get moved by certain things in your application. So it's not always, oh, have the best grades or have the best essay. There's different parts that appeal to different people. So some people get in for their essays, some people get in for their extracurriculars, some get in for their letters of recommendation. So what you need to do is just make each one as strong as possible. Also, admissions officers, the process is, so when you apply for college, beginning of January, results typically come out in the end of March. But from January to mid-February, they're not even reading your application. What they're doing is organizing all the parts together so that they know, oh, this person belongs to this school, and this person's in this admissions officer's district. And then once you get within your admissions officer district, then your specific admission officer reads your application. Meaning my application was within like the Northern California. The person who checks like Oklahoma would never even see my application. They don't know anything about it. So it's really just one admission officer who really looks at your application, and then a few others who maybe help them with that. And when I went to my Stanford admission weekend, I met my admissions officer, and they told me like what they really liked about my application, which was really useful as well. But another thing is that because now they only have a month and a half to look through your application, from mid-February to like about the end of March, then that means they're reading maybe like 10,000 or like 5,000 applications within that period. So you're just going through and reading them like 10 minutes per application. So you don't have that much time to make your entire high school experience stick. So it's really important to have something in your application that really sticks out, or something that's really unique, so when they just glance through it for a little bit, they all of a sudden like get this impression off of you. Because they're not going to be analyzing your specific application for an hour. They're humans and they physically just don't have the time or the willingness to do that. So that's why you just have to make every part as strong as possible, so there's no reason for them to look at it and be like, oh, I don't like this person, and just throw it out, because that's what they're going to do sometimes. Also, different colleges also look for different things. You have to be sure to, if you want to get into certain types of colleges, you have to center your application around what they're looking for. So I think, for example, something that Harvard looks for is they really look for academic strength. They really like people who do academic things, and they usually have fantastic GPAs and stuff like that. I think Stanford is a little different. Stanford likes looking for people who they find interesting. That's why sometimes Stanford gets a much larger mix of people, is because they like people who are little interesting people who they just want to see around campus and want to see there. And that's why they get so many creative minds that end up starting businesses, because they like to look for that personality more than I think necessarily exactly everything that you did in high school. So you also want to apply for colleges for the right reasons, because there's no reason in applying for a college for the sake of it, because they're going to be able to tell within your application if you actually want to go there or not. So the different parts of a college application are, the common application is the most commonly used form. It's a way for you to, I guess, have all your applications in one place. Have you guys all heard of the Common Application? Okay, so that's good. So from about applicant personal information to academics, it's just information that you fill out. There's no thought involved. It's like, what do your parents do? What is your name? Like, what are you planning on pursuing in the future? And like, are you Asian? What's your family income? I think they asked that, maybe not. And like, what school did you go to? Is it public? Is it private? Just stuff like that. It's all very common and accepted. A common exception to the Common Application over a few colleges that don't use it are MIT. They have their own application system, which makes it a lot more difficult to apply to sometimes because it's really hard to, when you're time crunched on applications, to be able to fill out so many different versions. And then the UC system has their own schedule as well, and so does Georgetown. So this is just an example of what the parts after the Common Application look like. So this is mine, just not filled out anymore. I had to empty it all. So at the top, they list any brief academic honors or awards you've had. And the reason why it's really important, so that's why I said do like very academic things sometimes, is because there's a section in your application specifically for listing them. So if you don't have anything to put there, it's a little bit of a detriment. Some things that I put there is I put like winning like second place in like an international essay competition, or like getting, I don't know, like being like a California state finalist for like other essay competitions, and like different debate like awards that I've won as well. So I put all of those here. And then they ask you for the grade level you want it and the highest level of recognition. So it goes school, state and region, national, and then international. The things that come after that are then your extracurricular activities and your work experience. So the application might change by the time your students get to college because they change all the time. The essay topics this year are going to be different than the essay topics I had. But something that's fairly standard, and my sister had this when she applied for college about 4 years ago, is that they just have 10 sections for you to fill in the extracurricular activities that you had, the grade levels that you were involved in the activity, approximately the hours per week and the weeks per year that you participated, whether you did it during the school year or summer, if you want to participate in college, and a brief summary of exactly what that activity was. And this is why I'm saying that college applications are a little bit random, because when I was filling out this application, I only had maybe 50 or 75 characters to fill in exactly what this thing was. And judging by how long it has to take me to explain the youth commission to anybody, it was really hard to be able to summarize it in that short of amount of time. So it's really important every word that you choose within this section is going to be really important because you hardly have any space, and all they're going to do is read it through once and see exactly what you did. So what comes after that is then an essay portion within the Common Application. There are two parts to the essay. One is a short answer essay, and all they do is ask you to elaborate on one of your extracurricular activities and pretty much just how you felt doing it. So I specifically wrote about Overture Literary Magazine because I really wanted to stress that that was what made me unique, because I founded a magazine and I got it online. I got it in a bunch of press sources. It was viewed in 10 countries, and it was viewed over 10,000 times, I think. And I thought that this was a really unique thing that not many other people did. I contemplated for a little bit about writing about speech and debate presidency, but then I decided that there's a speech and debate president in every single school, and that's not going to make me unique enough. So I did something that I think only I or very few people did, because this is one of the essay portions that really sets you apart from everybody else. The next portion is the long essay topic, and you just write, I think you guys have heard about the college essay. These are the new topics for 2013 and 2014, and you can find them online easily, but they're very, very general, so anything you want to write about pretty much will fit in one of these topics. They just ask you either an incident or time when you experienced failure and how it affected you, a time when you had to challenge a belief or idea and how you decided to act, a place or environment in which you were happy, and an accomplishment that made you happy, or an accomplishment that you wanted to expand on a little more. So the purpose of the essays is something that I'll talk about a little later when I go through from the point of an admission officer, which is next. This is just a summary of exactly what is expected on the college application. And then on top of this, each college then has a supplement, meaning that they have a section in which you have to say, I want to apply for this college on the Common Application. You add them to your list of colleges, click them, and then click Fill in Supplement, and then they have their own section as well. But this is the Common Application. This section is something that gets sent to every college within that system. So pretty much everything except MIT, UC's, Georgetown, and a few other schools. But this section gets sent to everybody. So from the point of an admissions officer, I once talked to an admission officer, I think, who once read for Stanford about this. And she said that what they do is they look through the application from the most objective, so the most standard, to the least standard or most opinionated things. Because they want to get an impression of you from exactly what you did to how they feel about you. So the first things they look at are your scores in GPA. And that's why people tell you all the time that GPA is like super important because it's the first thing they look at, and if they don't think it's strong enough, then it's going to be very hard for you to get through rounds after that to be able to be considered for admission. And something that she also told me is because of the fact that they're reading so many applications at once, then that's why it takes them, it's really easy to just reject candidates. What they really look for is they look at your application. If there's any reason to reject you, then that's why they reject you. Because that's easier for them to do than to try to find a reason to accept you. Because that's why their admissions rate are so low. So they look to see if they reject you. So the first thing are your scores and your GPA. After that, they look at your letters of recommendation. After that, they look at your extracurriculars. And then it gets a little more and less, or a little less and less objective from then on. And then finally, they look at your essays and then the supplements and anything else that you decided to send into them.
Sorry.
Yeah.
What's the law?
Oh, it's the letters of recommendation, the letters that teachers and someone from your office will have to write for you.
So do they have to be like the teacher or any of the officers in the school, or you can ask anybody else to write it?
So most universities require 2 letters from teachers, and they strongly prefer you get them from your junior year teachers, so your 11th grade teachers. I know a few people who get them from their 10th grade teachers as well, but the problem with that is that you ask for your letters like at the end of your 11th grade or the beginning of your 12th grade, and if you ask any teachers from before that, they're not going to remember you as well, first of all, so they will have less to write. And secondly, it's not as powerful for colleges because colleges know that's what you were like back then, but that doesn't mean they know what you're like right now. So you want the most immediate ones. You can tell them exactly what you're like at the moment.
So are you going to comment about what classes you are going, courses you are going to choose to make your the GPA strong? Because depends on what how many AP you are going to choose, right? So it's the value of that GPA is different, right?
So I'm going to talk about each section in a little detail and a few tips on each one right now. So the first thing is the scores in GPA. And however much I stress that you need to have like strong extracurriculars or strong whatever, then the first thing that you always have to do is maintain your GPA. Because I know a lot of people within my school who had very good extracurriculars and other things that they did, but they spent so much time doing those other things that they weren't able to maintain good grades. And universities are first and foremost an academic institution, so what they want really are strong minds and strong students. So even if you're able to participate in a lot of extracurriculars, they need to see that you're going to be able to keep up with the coursework and the classes that you would take at that university first. Meaning it's super important to have a good GPA. I know a lot of people in my school who thought that if they had good enough extracurriculars, then they could make up for their GPA or SAT score, but I don't think that's true at all. So good GPA is crucial, and I will talk a little bit about the tips about the AP classes in the next slide. So after that is the SAT reasoning test. I know a lot of students who really stress about this as well because they don't think they can get their scores up there. And I'll talk about that later, but I'm just going through the pieces right now. And then after that is the SAT 2s, which are called the SAT subject test. So in addition to the SAT reasoning test, which is the one that everybody knows is out of 2,400, a lot of people take the SAT 2 as well. And what this is different subjects that you also need to test and to show your abilities in specific things. So there's things for like biology, there's 2 for biology, chemistry, physics, literature, history, like Spanish, French, I don't know, Japanese, and there's like a bunch of different subjects you can take. And you just take the ones that you think that you would do best in. And I took ones that I'd already taken like classes in so that I could prepare for the SAT while I was taking the classes while I didn't have to do extra studying on top of that. So some tips for the SAT and GPA is I would say that you should choose your classes very, very wisely. Some people think that they should just take as many AP classes as possible, and they take all the hardest AP classes at their school to prove that they can do them, and then they turn out they struggle really hard and then they aren't able to pass, or they aren't able to get a good grade and they get a lot of B's on their transcript, and then that hurts them even more. So what I've seen what the guidance counselor recommendation letters look like for the recommendation letter in your office, and what they have is first they write a letter about you, and then they say what classes you took, and what AP and honors classes were offered. And this is at least true for Limbrook. And they tell you what AP and honors classes were offered. So that way the colleges know how many of the classes you took that were difficult out of how many were offered in your school. This is how they make it fair across like everyone in the nation, because some schools like don't have any AP classes offered, so they can't hold students against it for not taking any, or some have just a much wider range. So what you need to do is, I think, as long accept a good range for AP scores is as long as you take 5 to 10, that is like a reasonable amount. I would say 5, maybe a little bit low. Like if you can take more, that's better, but don't do it if you don't think you're gonna be able to like do well in that class, because then you're just gonna end up struggling and you're gonna have to forsake on your other extracurriculars in order to make up for this one grade. Yeah.
5 to 10, that's included the last year, 12th grade. Right?
So I was gonna talk about what I took a little bit later, but I took 3 APs my junior year, and then I took 5 classes my senior year, and they were all AP classes. And my school only offers, I think, 14 or 15 AP, so I took over half of what was offered, and most of those other subjects were like Spanish, or they were like other languages that I couldn't have taken anyway. So I took most of the APs that I could have taken during my senior and junior years. And I wasn't even allowed to take them my freshman and sophomore year. But if you're allowed to take them at your school, then it's preferable that you do them a little earlier so you don't have to take 5 your senior year the way I had to do. So, like I said, like don't take AP classes as many as possible just for the sake of it. I had the option to take 4 AP classes my junior year. I took AP US History, I took AP Language and Composition, and I took AP Calculus BC. I could have on top of that added an AP Science, but I talked to people at my school and they told me that if I were taking AP US History, that is one of the most difficult classes in the school, and it's a lot of work all the time, so I shouldn't take an AP Science necessarily on top of that, because I would just spread myself too thin on top of everything else I was doing. So I decided not to take an AP Science class my junior year, and I instead took Physics Honors. So I had an honors class still, so it was still good. It still showed them that I wasn't just taking normal classes, but I didn't spread myself so thin that I wouldn't be able to do everything else that I was doing. The next thing I would say is start studying for your SATs early. I started doing it, I think maybe even at the end of my 8th grade or beginning of my freshman year. And the reason I started so early is because I didn't want to have to cram it in, and teachers always tell you that cramming is no way to study for a test, and it's true. I've done it a few times in high school, but it's not good, and you shouldn't do that. And the reason that is because almost every incoming junior I know right now is taking an SAT prep course over the summer, and they're just going to an SAT class for like 4 hours a day all summer and trying to cram as much information in them as possible. But that's not as valuable as actually learning why they want you to take the test from the very beginning. Because one, you're gonna lose out on a valuable summer to do something. I went to summer camps summer before my junior year, so I actually had more things to talk about my application and things that I learned, rather than saying I sat in a prep class all summer to try to prepare for this SAT so that you guys would accept me. So I started from the beginning of my 8th grade or end of my 8th grade to the beginning of my freshman year, and what I did was I had one tutor for a little bit of the time, and what I did was every day on Thursdays I would get home and I would study for the SAT once for 1 hour a week, which is very manageable. I spend 1 hour a week doing lots of different things, but for 1 hour on Thursdays when I go home each week, I would get home, I would have a tutor there, and he was really nice. He'd been tutoring for a long time. He graduated from Stanford too, like 50 years ago, and he would just give me one section of the SAT. So the SAT has 10 sections, right? There's 3 sections for critical reading, 3 for the writing section, and then 3 for math, and then 1 extra of any of those 3 in which they just use for research purposes. So one of those 10 sections doesn't even go into your grade, but you don't know which one that is. You have to try hard on all of them. So I would just do 1 section a day, like 1 critical reading section. I would grade it, I would see what I did wrong, I would learn from it, and next week I would come back and do it again. So it became a habit for me to take these tests ever since like freshman year. So when I took my test at the end of sophomore year, as in May of sophomore year, I was already really prepared for it. I wasn't like, okay, I need to remember everything I learned this summer, but I had just been doing it for so long and it just became a habit, and it wasn't even a problem for me to just take the test. I ended up getting a 2360 on my test. I got 800 in critical reading. I didn't miss a problem in critical reading. I got 800 in writing, and I accidentally missed 2 problems in math and got a 760, which shouldn't happen because math is the easiest section, but I don't know. I don't know what happened. But that's why I say that you should definitely start studying for your SAT early. if you haven't started already, then it's valuable to take an SAT prep course over the summer. But instead of doing that, I already finished my SAT by sophomore year. So while everyone was trying to study really hard for it the summer after sophomore year, I was done with it. I could start taking lots of different summer programs and like learn different things and get prepared for the next year instead of having to worry about something everyone else was planning on taking in October of their junior year. So I would say start studying for the SAT definitely early. If you don't think that you're going to be able to study on your own, then it would be probably valuable to get a good tutor. You should ask around and figure out who is a good tutor and who helps like their students get a good grade. And if you do think you can study on your own, because I know a few people who do that as well, as long as you buy like an SAT prep book and finish that one, and if you're done, you can move on to another one. But don't do what I know a lot of parents do for their students, is they buy like 10 SAT prep books. And I go to my friend's house sometimes, and they have SAT prep books like as high as like they are tall, and half of them are just unopened because they just could not finish them. They did not want to do that many prep books. So don't just buy all of them thinking it'll help. Actually figure out which ones are good. I know that whenever I studied for example, SAT 2s, I would use a brand called Barron's, and the reason I use that one is because it's supposed to be harder than the real SATs. So when you do those books, once you go to the real SAT, they seem easier for you.
What's your book?
Barron's, BARRON''S.
ARRON. So you stand for SAT too, the SAT test too, like Barron's for SAT.
Yes. For the SAT, I didn't actually use a prep book because I had a tutor who would bring me like a section of a test each day. I'm pretty sure he got them from prep books though, but I never bought one on my own.
So you had that tutor for 2 years? The end of 8th grade year, the end of sophomore year.
So my sister is 3 years older than me. She's going to be a senior at Yale next year. And what she did was she was taking these classes with a friend of hers because it's more fun if it's with someone else. She was taking it with a friend of hers, and once they took their SATs, I just took her place. So I've like been listening to their classes for a really long time, and sometimes I would like sit there and like just make jokes or something. And then once they were done, then I just like substituted. And then her friend substituted her sister, who now is at University of Pennsylvania, so UPenn's Wharton School of Business. And it's the best business school in the world. So she's there. So we would just take classes together, and it would be really fun. And it wouldn't be that boring because I thought the teacher was really nice, and I was really good friends with her. And sometimes we would take them with her cousin as well. So it was just like a good experience overall.
So besides that 1 hour per week, do you do any homework?
So what he made me do was a lot about reason why people have problems with reading comprehension, which a lot of people consider the hardest part of the test, is because they don't know like exactly how to answer those questions. Meaning that a lot of times like you're reading comprehension, I don't know if you all know what they look like, but you have the first give you like sentences, and you need to fill in the appropriate words in each sentence, and they give you options. A lot of people have problems because they don't know what those words mean. They don't know what several words mean within those options, so they don't know how to choose words. So something that he made me do, and this wasn't just for SAT, this was just for good knowledge in general, was I had a book of vocab words, and he created it himself. Anytime he saw an SAT word that one of his students didn't know, and it was on the SAT, he would just add the word into the book and then publish it new every year. So it was 64 pages. There were about 30 words on each page, and every week I would have to memorize 1 page of those words. So because I'd been taking classes for so long, I didn't have to cram 100 words a day. I just did 30 words a week, and then the next week I would add on another 30 words, and he would test me from the entire section that I had previously studied for. Test me just like 10 words a week. So he would pick 10 from any words I've already studied. So that way he would make sure I'm still studying my old words while adding on to the new ones as well. So that's the only homework I had to do for my SAT class. And it just builds a vocabulary. And I find it really useful even out of the SAT because I know a lot of different words other people don't know. I can use them in conversation, I read them in different texts, and I don't have to look them up. And it's just really useful in general. And I'm glad that he made me do that because I know a lot of words now.
Can you share the teacher's contact information?
Yeah.
Sure, you will get a lot of customers.
Yeah, he was very interesting actually. He used to be like an investment banker, then he got out of it and he now teaches like a bunch of classes. I think his email, I can check it later, like after this. I think it's SMJ, because his name is Stephen Michael Johnson. So SMJ, and then ADV. I don't know why there's an ADV. Yeah, he teaches at Cheryl, but I had him as a private tutor. Or semi-private. So S as in like Sam, M as in Michael, J as in Jackson, A as in apple, D as in dog, and V as in like Victor, yeah, sure, at gmail.com. And that's the email, that's the tutor that I studied from. I think he's really good for students who are a little more self-motivational though, because I knew I wanted to do well in the SAT, so I would do the work and I would only need an hour a week and I would like work hard an hour. But I know some students who really don't want to study for the SAT, so they might need a tutor who's a little more like strict and has like maybe like once every other day or something to keep them always on it. If like they need more assistance or if they don't really want to study for the SAT and they need a stricter teacher on them. Because he's fairly nice and he would just expect me to study my words and I would study my words.
So how does he make sure you understand all those words? It's just not just checking the spelling. When you say he tested you every week for 10 words, what's his criteria to understand you read to make sure?
So the words all have a definition next to them.
Yeah.
So there's 64 on a page, or 30 on a page, 64 pages. So I would have to know like the definition, and then sometimes he would ask me to use it in a sentence. And if I was able to use it in a sentence properly, that means I actually understood what the word meant. He also had a really good method. I don't know if he still does this, but he wanted me to like be competitive with my friend who was in that class with me. So we would have to do different things. Like if we had memorized 10 words, every time we got a word wrong, he would like put a mark next to our name or something. And whoever had the fewest marks, sometimes he would like pay us $10 like a week or something. I don't know if he still does this, but I just know he did that for us and we had a lot of fun with it. And so in addition for the SAT, because I think it is an important thing, is that what we did was, you know there's an essay portion within the SAT? It's part of the writing section. It's the first thing you do when you go in to take your SAT. And the reason why it makes a lot of people scared is because they don't think that they're good writers. But the SAT is really formulaic. Like there's a formula to how to do it because they have to grade so many, and if they like have any subjectivity within it at all, they get sued. So it's very, very formulaic. And so the SAT, what they just want is for the essay, they want 2 examples. Like that's all they want really. You have like one, they give you a prompt and they just ask you, do you like this side or do you like this side? It doesn't matter which side you choose. You just pick 2 examples that you think support a side, and then you come up with a reason why those 2 examples support, and it should be one reason for both of them. And then you just write the position, so like, yes, I support it because of this reason. You have 2 examples, 2 paragraphs, conclusion, that's it. So something else that my SAT tutor made me do was he made me know two things very well so I could use them for any prompt. One is the biography of a historical figure, so someone famous in history that you could use examples from their life. One was a book really well, a book that had a lot of themes and can apply to a lot of places. So I alternated between King Henry VIII, which is the King of England a long time ago, because I found him really interesting, and Andrew Jackson, who did a lot of like really bad things in his career, but was also really interesting. So I could use him because he's a very controversial figure. It could go either way. I don't think you should necessarily like use those 2 people because there's a lot of different people out there that would work. I just particularly wanted to learn about these people's lives more because I thought they were interesting. So it wasn't like a burden on me to study their lives because I thought that they did a lot of really interesting things. And then I did a book that I really enjoyed, and I wouldn't mind like rereading or like reading summaries of them online in a few years again. I alternated between The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, that's one of my favorite books, and Fahrenheit 451, which I think most of you read freshman year in high school, or I read it freshman year in high school, and I liked it a lot. So I primarily just studied those 2 people's lives really well, and those 2 books really well, and they worked for like every prompt that he ever gave me. So during that class, he would also every week give me an essay prompt, and he wouldn't make me write an essay, but he would make me in 30 seconds come up with the 2 examples and the reason. So I got really good at just coming up with those on the spot as well. But really, like anybody's life works. It's not just those 2 people. I have other friends who did many other people, and they all work as long as they had an interesting life, and they're fairly well known so that people know who you're talking about.
The book is the picture of what?
Dorian Gray. It's a name.
What is that?
Dorian space Gray. But like I said, like any book works. Almost any book I read in high school worked, and most of the books I read 8th grade worked too. Because I read like Animal Farm, I read like Call of the Wild. Those books work too. I think classics work especially well because there's a lot of themes in them, a lot of intricate storylines, and that's why they're considered classic books.
did anybody in your class actually got really good score without taking any classes or tutoring?
A lot of people don't tell me if they take classes because I don't ask. But I know a few people who did self-study on their own, and I think they got 2350. I know one girl at least who studied on her own, and she got a 2350. A couple people, I think they just did a few lessons and they got 2380s. I don't think they did it as extensively as I did, but I think that that's because they were very prepared from the start. They both had older siblings as well who had already gone through the process. And for me, I one, just enjoyed my classes a lot, and two, it was just very easy for me to take the test because I'd gone through it so long. And I took the test earlier than I think most people in my grade did because I did it sophomore year, so I was done with it early. They were all studying for it during the summer while I was doing other things. So it's not necessary to take a class, but if you don't, then you have to be really diligent about studying on it on your own time and creating a schedule for yourself so you don't fall behind, I think. So those are the parts of the SAT. The math section of this SAT I think is fairly easy. I don't know what I did wrong. I messed up on really easy problems, I think. Because the problem is the SAT is so long that it's a 3-hour test, and they make you sit there in there for an hour ahead of time too to fill out all the information about yourself, that you get really tired early. So a lot of people put all their effort into the essay because they're so scared about it. The essay scored out of 12, and then they run out of brain power, and then they're really tired by the end, and that's where people make the most mistakes. So something else my tutor was also helping me with was you don't want to use all your brain power in the beginning. That's why he made me do the essays really quickly. I finished the essay on my SAT 10 minutes early, and I didn't go over and read it. I just sat there and took a little nap because I wanted to keep my brain power, my stamina up, so I could work through it all the way to the end. Because that's what people have the most problem with, I think. It's not that the problems themselves aren't too hard, it's that they can't do it all the way to the end because their brains get tired. So for the first half, I would just kind of do the problems, and then I would make sure each one was right, and I didn't go back to check my answers for the first few. I just made sure every time I was doing it was right, and then I moved on. Because then you don't want to tire your brain out. And then for the last half, then I put most of my energy into it, so that I would be tired by the end, but it wouldn't matter because I would be done with the test. So it's a lot about stamina, I think. That's why people, I think, who are really good already in other subjects, debate competitions, are really tiring, or they do sports, they already have really good stamina, so it's a little bit easier for them to be able to take it and be able to power through it. Alternatively, if you don't like the SAT, I know a lot of people who don't think they can do well on it, they take the ACT instead. I don't think it's sponsored by College Board, I'm not exactly sure, but it's an alternative, and all colleges accept either the SAT or the ACT. Well, they accept both, but they don't care which one you submit. ACT I never took, so I don't know too much about it, but it's out of 36, and I think a good score is considered 35 to 36 is a very good score. I think 33 to 34 is a pretty good score. But I know that it's a shorter test. I think it's about 2.5 hours maybe.
No, it's also about 3.5. Yeah.
I think it's a little bit shorter though. I know that because people I know who couldn't go through the entire SAT decided to take the ACT instead. So it has more sections though, I think. And there's also a science section involved in that. But I heard it's not really science, it's more just logic. But I don't know too much about the ACT, so if you don't feel as if the SAT is the one for you, then you should check out the ACT and see if it's better. So one thing I really did want to stress though is don't stress about getting a perfect score. Anything above a 2300, any college will accept. Because they know that at some point the scores you get are random. It's just, if you happen to know that one word, if you happen to just know that one concept, or if you just got tired at one point. So they know as long as you fall within a range, then that means you're good enough to pass the academic rigor of their specific school. So I got a 2360. I was a little upset that I got 2 math problems wrong, but I didn't go I need a 2400 and take the test again, because that's a waste of my time. I had better uses of what I was going to do. I know my friend who goes to the UPenn Wharton School of Business, I think she actually only got a 2260, and that's still definitely enough. I would say 2300 plus, you have absolutely no worries. You're they're not going to be your score is too low. But if you get a 2250 or a 2200 plus, then it's a decent score. But if you can bump it up a little, that would be better. But you shouldn't stress too hard about it. I would say a lot of schools actually have a lower median than this for SAT scores, but I'm just going to say this out there, and it's true that you have a higher expectation if you do come from an Asian ethnicity, because more Asian students do get higher scores. You're expected to get a higher score to be able to compete. So they can't If they only looked at just the scores, then like Asian students would typically be in the very, very top region, and they don't accept all Asian students. So they just expect you, if you're an Asian, to get a higher score than most other students, which is why I think 2300 plus is where you're safest at. Also for SAT subject tests, those are only out of 800. I did not get an 800 on any of my SAT subject tests, which is kind of embarrassing, but it was okay. I got over 750 on all of them, so I was fine. I didn't worry about them after I took them. I got a good enough score, and I just moved on. I took the math SAT 2, which most people get 800 on, so I don't know what I did wrong. But I took the math SAT 2. I wouldn't suggest taking the math SAT 1, because that one's like not difficult at all. If you're gonna take a math one, take the 2. And don't take 1 and 2, because that's pointless, just take the 2. And then, because I wasn't too much of a science person, then I took literature, and I took history. And the reason I took history and literature is because I had just taken those AP classes junior year, so I was really ready for them already, and I was really prepared. If you took like AP chemistry as a junior, and taking or chemistry honors as a sophomore, taking chemistry is a pretty good idea too. I just didn't particularly enjoy the subject, so I decided not to do it. Do you have any questions about the SAT? Because I'm going to move on to letters of recommendation.
So you suggest to take SAT 2 after AP, right? It's corresponding to the AP class.
I didn't. So it depends. So for the SAT Math 2, which I think most people take, almost everyone I know took that one, I took it after I took pre-calculus honors. And my teacher, who also recommended me to take it right after pre-calculus honors. And the reason being is because anything you need to know on the SAT 2, you would have learned by the end of pre-calculus. They have maybe a few derivatives or integrals on it, and that's what you need to know from pre-calculus 2's honors. So the moment you take that, you should be ready to take your SAT 2 math test. If you do it before, or you wait until after you take calculus, there's a chance that you'll forget the earlier concepts that you've learned. Like, you have a lot of geometry and a lot of algebra 2 trig on it, which is why I think that's the best part to take it. So I took my SAT 2 math right the month after I took my normal SAT. So I took my normal SAT May of my sophomore year. I took my SAT 2 math June of my sophomore year. Because I just finished pre-calculus at that point. I learned everything I need to know. I didn't want to take it in May because I was taking my SAT there, obviously, and because you weren't done with the class by that point. So I was just finished in June and I took it.
Why did you take SAT 2, the math 2 rather than math 1?
So math 2, first of all, is more difficult, and colleges know it's more difficult. So I don't think they give nearly as much weight to the math 1 as they do to the math 2. And there's no point in taking both because everything in math 2 will be covered in math 1 anyway. And it's really not that difficult at all. Like, almost everyone I know gets a really good score on that test, especially if you get a good teacher for pre-calculus or algebra 2 trig. You should know everything on the test. Also, I think the SAT is a lot of just about, it's a lot about just tricking. Like, nothing on the test itself is actually that difficult. It's just they word things a little differently, or they have like a little bit of a trick in the question, and because you're trying to move so fast, you're trying to get all of it done, and you just mess up a little. Like, I'm fairly certain the 2 questions I messed up on math weren't because I didn't know the concept that was being taught, but rather that I was trying to get through to the next problem, or I was just reading the question too quickly and I just missed a portion of it. And then they have like a trick in it, and they know you'll miss it, so they have the correct answer if you missed it on there. So then they just try to trick you in that way.
And how much is SAT literature?
What did I get on this?
SAT literature score?
I got a 760 on my SAT literature, which is my lowest score. I got a 770 in history, and then I got a 780 in math.
So for history, you took the SAT 2 right after your AP class?
Yeah. So
usually it's, you took the SAT 2 right after you take the AP class.
Because the SAT 2 and AP are both given by College Board, the nonprofit, which, yeah, the organization College Board. So they're very similar. Like, they look for similar things. So the moment I think I took my SAT my AP in May for history. I took my SAT though in June. One, because I was kind of tired in May from studying for all the SATs, or for all my AP, so I didn't want to tire myself out too much. And in June, I could do a little bit of refresher on everything, and my teacher would give us a little bit of a refresher as well. And he would go a little bit farther than the AP covered as well, but sometimes the SAT covers. So I took mine in June. I would say it's probably not a problem to take it in May, but I just didn't want to, so I took it in June.
So how many SAT 2 tests do you do in a year?
So
Every month?
Oh, how many do they deliver?
No, like SAT, they have only a couple of days you can take, right? But for
okay.
SAT 2, like how many?
I think it's a similar schedule that they follow to the SAT.
Fixed day,
Yeah, they're
right?
fixed dates, definitely. So some people take more than one SAT 2 at one time. So they're all within fixed dates. I don't know the exact dates though, unfortunately. I know they have October, November, June, or October, November, December, sorry, May and June. They might have one in March, but I'm not sure. But you can easily find that online.
So you finished all your 3 SAT 2 at the end of
Junior year. And then I didn't need to do, I was just like fine. Yeah, so I didn't need to worry about it. I considered trying to take a few to get a higher score, but I decided, especially with college applications and all my other stuff coming up, I couldn't manage that many things at once, so I decided not to.
Can you tell us what AP class you took in senior year?
So I was gonna talk about this a little later because somebody asked me this last question. Okay.
And for SAT 2, do you need to do some extra prepare beside your classwork?
It depends how well you do in your class. So I was okay. I was a little worried in the beginning in AP history because the first test they give you, or in lots of AP classes actually, the first test they give you is deliberately super hard because they try to scare you out of taking the class. They only want you to take it if you're prepared for it. So I was a little scared after my first test, to be honest. I was like, oh, this is hard. But then you get into a rhythm of studying and you understand what your teacher's looking for and anything else. So if you think you're doing very well in the class, you should be fine on the SAT because this region, especially the Bay Area around here, is notoriously more difficult than most other places in the nation. So if you can do well in the schools here in those AP classes, then you should be fine on a national SAT test.
Thank you.
I know some people who did do extra prep books and stuff. For AP history, I did not buy any extra prep books. Some people gave me some for free, but I never used them in the end. I bought one book to help me in AP US history, the class itself, and then it also turned out to be very useful for the SAT. It was called Crash Course. I don't know who it's offered by, but it's US history crash course. And it's just it's much shorter than the other prep books they give you, which is one helpful because it's easier to memorize. And they have a lot of random facts in there you don't think you need. But I realized after I took my history SAT that almost every question that other people couldn't answer was answerable because it was in that book. And it's really, really helpful. I liked
Crash, C-R-A-S-H.
Yeah, crash, crashing into a car, and then course, a course that you take. It's crash course.
Crash course,
US history. But I don't recommend that you buy these books now because most likely they're going to come out with a newer version in a few years. In which case this one will become slightly more obsolete, but still useful.
So how do the different AP subjects weigh into the evaluation?
I would say it depends on what you're looking for. If you were to apply as a science major, it's not necessarily super useful to take AP literature because it'll prove that you know literature well, but that's not necessarily what they're looking for, right? I was going to talk about a little bit about what colleges look for, and they just want some sort of passion that you're really into, which is why I'm saying, I did not take AP computer science, even though I could have, because I did not, first of all, know anything about computer science. I'm learning it now, and because I have to go to Stanford and everybody knows computer science there, but also because I didn't think that would add to my application enough to offset the time it would have to take me to study for it. I knew that I was going to try to portray myself in a sort of leadership, knowing a lot about the world, knowing a lot about writing and speaking, and that sort of person when I did my application. So I didn't think computer science would add to it that much. So I think it depends. If I hadn't taken, let's say, the AP US history, I think they might have looked at that and been like, oh, I wonder why she didn't take AP US history, because I seem to be that kind of person who would enjoy the class. So you take something that you one that you would enjoy, because that's what you want to learn about. I did enjoy history a lot, and I like learning about it, but also something that you think they would think that you should enjoy. Because if you don't take it and you're supposed to really enjoy history, then they're going to be confused as to why you didn't take it. So I think it depends, yeah.
So, are you going to study something along that line in Stanford?
I don't know exactly what I'm studying yet, because I admit that I didn't really know a lot of the science opportunities that were there until I'd already been through high school, because my sister was on speech and debate, so I knew I wanted to do it, so I was kind of on that course ready. So what I'm going to do in college is I'm going to explore the science, technology route a little more, because Stanford's really good at it, and I do enjoy that. I just didn't really pursue it in high school. See if I like that, but right now I'm thinking that studying economics would be really good, because I do enjoy business, and I enjoy speaking and communication. I think that's a lot about what business is about. So economics maybe. Yeah?
Just wondering, in AP history help you on the essay portion? Because there's a lot of examples in history.
For my SAT?
Yeah.
Well, I took AP US History after I'd already taken my SAT, so not for me. But I don't think it's necessary, right? Because you know enough history in your head already to pass like an SAT. Like, you just need to know like one thing really well, and it should work for mostly everything. You take world history sophomore year as well, and you learn a lot about different people as well. If you find anyone interesting, you should pick them out and learn a little bit more about them.
Is there any difference in world history and US history in the AP class you need to take, or either it should be fine?
So my school did not offer AP World History. So I had to take normal World History my sophomore year, which is why I took AP US History. I don't think it makes too big of a difference, but I would say that you don't take them both in the same year. So if you would like to take one, I think way more people do take US History than they take World History. So if I had to suggest one, I would say probably US History, but I definitely would have taken World History if I had had the chance as well. I just didn't have it offered for me. Also, I know a lot of people stress about taking additional APs, like they self-study their own APs. I know someone who self-studied like 10 on their own, which maybe works because they're going to Princeton, but I don't think it's what like got him into Princeton. So I didn't self-study any of my own APs. I was considering doing like psychology and world history and chemistry. I didn't take those classes, but I took them in high school. But then I decided that most of the colleges I wanted to get into weren't going to take these credits anyway. Like, Stanford does not take like any of my AP credits except for potentially physics and my language, so Spanish. But they don't take the other ones because they think that their courses are more rigorous than APs have to offer. So I decided that I didn't want them to just think that I was taking tests for the sake of taking tests, but only taking things that I actually enjoyed. And so I would have done world history, but unfortunately I did not sign up for the SAT or the history AP in time because I didn't realize that that would be a good thing to do. So I wasn't as ahead as I guess a lot of you guys are because you're here. But I probably maybe would have signed up, but I don't think it would have helped me too much. So I took advantage of what I had to offer to school, and then I went outside for it in terms of extracurriculars. So maybe it is useful. So at least for my school, you're not allowed to take a science AP until junior or senior year. But Lindbergh is lots of people are very focused on science. So what they do is they take chemistry, which is required sophomore year, take chemistry honors, which is the hardest course you can take in a science, unless you're in calculus already by sophomore year. So then after they take chemistry honors, they study on their own a little bit, take the chemistry AP test, so then they don't need to take chemistry AP anymore, and they can take biology and physics APs, their junior or senior year, so they can get 3 APs in there for science, because they're really interested in science. And I think that makes sense if you're going for a science route, but because I wasn't, I didn't feel the need to do that. Are there any other questions, or should I move on to letters of recommendation?
Do you sometimes feel like your classmates do you think as competitors, in a sense?
I do view them somewhat as competition, but not in an unhealthy way, I don't think. Like, I talk to them about what I'm doing, they talk to me about what they're doing, and we like bounce ideas off of each other, and we're like, oh, you should do this like with your thing, and someone will tell me like, oh, yeah, you should like do like this for your like a speech and debate summer camp that you hold every year. That would be really useful. So we do help each other, but I think a little bit of competition definitely is healthy. I think one reason why so many students around here are so prepared for college compared to other places is everybody here is like very high achieving. So then you feel also an urge to be really high achieving as well, and that helps you to like motivate yourself. I don't think I would have been like done as nearly as many things that I did in high school if I didn't go to Lindbergh and people didn't also do really amazing things and make me feel like I was doing amazing things as well. Because if I think I'd been with a bunch of people who didn't care as much, then I would be like, oh, I'm speech and debate president. Oh, that's so good. Most people like aren't president of anything. That would be it for me. But I realized that lots of people were doing other things, so I realized I should be doing a lot of things as well. But I think sometimes it can get to an unhealthy point, so you can't let it get to that point. That's why I think it's really important, and I was going to talk about this later too, but I guess we can talk about it now, that you want to be like unique in some sort of way. If everyone is doing the same thing you're doing, not only will you feel really unhealthy competition because they're all trying to be the best at it, and there's like 10 people doing it, but you're not going to stand out as much in terms of college because then they're all going to be applying for the same colleges, and they're all going to have similar resumes, and they're going to just wonder, why should I take any of you? Like, none of you guys are special, and they just all get thrown out. Because they're looking for a reason to reject you, I think. Okay, so I'm just going to move on to letters of recommendation now. So the letters of recommendation, the way the process works, is most schools require you to take two junior year teachers, and then one person who's typically your guidance counselor who will then write your recommendation letter as well. That's one of the main reasons why they're there. So Lindbergh has 3 guidance counselors. They're split up by grade, or they're split up by last name. So my last name starts with T, so I was in the last guidance counselor. I had Miss Goldstein, who was absolutely amazing. I would suggest everyone take advantage of their guidance counselors, because most people don't, and she gave me a lot of help. And those are the things that are required. I know a few people who asked their sophomore year teachers because they didn't think any junior teachers were particularly good for them, or they didn't have a rapport with them the way they had with their sophomore year teachers. So that's acceptable as well, but I do think that colleges want to see the way that you are right now. So if you ask for sophomore year, they might think that there's been time for you to change since then, so that you might not be the person that those teachers are saying that you are right now. So I asked my AP Language and Composition teacher, his name was Mr. Hanford, who I really enjoyed his class. It was one of my favorite classes in high school. And I had also been in a club that he was an advisor of, so he knew me from another place outside of school. And then I asked my calculus teacher, who I also really liked, and I had her for 2 years because she taught me for pre-calculus and calculus. So she had known me for a really long time as well. I knew from the start, like when I got my teachers junior year, that these were the people that I was asking. But it's not necessarily true for a lot of you, because I just happened to know those teachers from before, so I knew that they had known me already. But a lot of what I think is important is that you should try asking one teacher in like your humanities fields. So like English, humanities, history, maybe a language if possible, that sort of area. And then ask one in your math or science field, so like your math teacher or your science teacher. Because even though I say that you should be unique, they want to see that you're well-rounded in general, because you're going to have to take classes in both these subjects. They want to see how the teachers in high school might compare to how the teachers in college review you as well. So I asked my math teacher and I asked my English teacher. And I thought that was a very good balance, and I still think it was. My sister, when she was applying, asked her history teacher, because she really enjoyed history. She got a paper published in like a national journal, and she asked her her math teacher as well. So as long as you ask for one of those two, you should be okay. I know someone who's going to Dartmouth, however, who asked her French teacher and she asked her English teacher, I think, because she didn't like any of her math and science teachers. And she's going to Dartmouth. She got into Columbia as well, but she decided not to go. So that's still okay, but I think you're safest if you do that combination. So what the junior year teachers are supposed to do is they're supposed to tell the colleges what you were like in their class and what kind of person you are. And this is really the only part of the application that you're not in control of. It's what other people say about you rather than what you think you have to offer to the school, which is why it's really, really important, because this is where I think a lot of your personality and the kind of person you are shows through, because they know that you don't have control over this portion, so it's really important. And typically, like, they compare themselves to like other students, like, oh, this student was one of like the best participators I had in class, or this student consistently did their homework even when other students wouldn't, or something like that, to show the way how you like fit in a classroom environment, if you're better than the students around you or if you just kind of fit in with the mold. In addition, then you have to get one letter of recommendation from your guidance counselor, or sometimes different people in the office will write it, but most often for most students it's the guidance counselor. If you're a National Merit semifinalist, it might be someone different because they have to split it up for the National Merit finalists.
Yeah. What's the National Merit finalist?
It's something that you don't have to worry about for a really long time. Okay. So once you become a junior, you take the PSAT. So I took my PSAT, like practice SAT, even though I'd already taken my SAT, because I wanted to become National Merit semifinalist. And it's just the top score, the top, I think, 1% of scores of people who take it automatically become a National Merit semifinalist. And the scores typically, if you get a 220 or above, and the highest score is a 240. So it's like just divide 100 for what the SAT is. So out of 2,400. So, no, just kidding, divide by 10. I don't know what I'm talking about. So 240. So, and then once you get that, you become a National Merit semifinalist automatically. There's about, I don't remember how many there are, like 16,000 National Merit semifinalists. Limburg has 64 this year. So we get a lot. Like most people get National Merit semifinalists around here if they want to take the PSAT because they're so prepared already around here. I know Monte Vista had like 50 something this year, and we were really happy because we beat them. So like they get a lot, but other schools it's a really big deal because only like 1 or 2 students get it. But around here, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Sorry, I'll get to your question in like a second. After that, you have to submit an essay and like a letter of recommendation to become potentially a National Merit finalist. And 8,000 students become National Merit finalists. So because these letter recommendations are required earlier than the college letter recommendations are required, that's why if you're a National Merit semifinalist, they'll split it up among different people. so not just your guidance counselor, so that each like person in the office, like the principal, assistant principals, oh, I have water right here. And they'll each write like maybe 3, so they can pay special attention to your letters of recommendation. This is at least the way it worked at Lynbrook. So I was originally supposed to get my assistant principal to write my letter of recommendation because that's how they split me up. But I knew my guidance counselor really well, so I was like, can I switch to my guidance counselor instead? Because I want her to write it. Because the letter they write for your national merit semifinalist is the same letter they use for your college applications. So I wanted a really good one, so I requested my guidance counselor in the end, and I got her. But most students get their guidance counselor. And what the guidance counselor is just supposed to do is she's supposed to compare you to different students in the school. So not just in a classroom setting, but how you compare to students in your school in general. So she'll talk about if you took very rigorous classes compared to the other students in your school, if you made an effort to like be known on school campus, stuff like that. Additionally, a lot of people choose to send in optional supplemental letters of recommendation. So in addition to the college application, the Common App, the supplement for each school, you also have the option to send in a supplement. So the options for that are you can send in, like if you wrote a science research paper, you can send in the abstract to the science research paper, so just a summary of what it was. If you're really good at music, some people send in CDs of themselves playing so they can hear you. If you're really good at art, people do portfolios and they create original artwork, send it in. I know someone who's going to Stanford with me who did that, and she got in because they thought her art was really amazing, and it was. And in addition, you can also send in an optional letter of recommendation. You can pretty much send in whatever you want in addition, but that's what people typically send. I know someone who sent in stories that she had written herself. So optional supplemental letters of recommendation like give a different perspective. So because I talked about Overture in my short answer for my essay, like my literary magazine, I decided that I'm not going to ask my advisor for Overture to write me something because that's already in my application, that's already come out. So I wanted a different part of my application to come out and a different perspective of me that wasn't already there. So I ended up asking my speech and debate coach, who I was president of speech and debate, but it wasn't really anywhere in my application, and I wanted it to be there because I thought debate was a really valuable activity that they knew it was valuable and I wanted to come out. And I also decided, because my other parts of my application were more about how academic I was and how I really enjoyed like publishing things and really enjoyed working with students in academic fields, I decided to ask him to make my letter about leadership, which is very different from just academics. It's not just about me competing in speech and debate competitions, but about how I led the club as president. And the reason why I wanted to do this was it would bring out a different side of my application that wasn't already there, and show them like different sides of me that they wouldn't have known otherwise. You don't want to make it something that they're already going to know, because then it's just repeating and they might get frustrated that you sent them something they didn't need to read and get annoyed at you and throw out your application. Because like I said, like admissions officers are human. Like if they don't like you as a human being, they're not going to want to put you in their school. So that's what I did. You don't have to do an option. I know tons of people who got into really great colleges who didn't. This is something I decided to do. Well, like I said, if you're really good at music and you do think you want to pursue it all through high school, but you don't think it'll be like something amazing in your application, that you won't win international competitions or something, but you think you're really good, you can definitely send in a CD of yourself and put it in. But I would put this caution: if you're gonna send in supplemental stuff, you have to make sure it's really good, because they have to read so many applications already. So all colleges tell you this too. If you're going to send in the extra stuff, you have to make sure it's going to be valuable for them. Because if it's not, they're going to think you're wasting their time. So don't just send in everything hoping something will catch their attention, because they'll just get annoyed at you. It's true. I know someone who sent in a photography thing, and then they sent in a letter of recognition from their photography teacher. Then they sent in a music thing, a letter of recognition from their music teacher. They sent in a flute concerto that they wrote themselves. And they sent in a science abstract. So they sent in 6 extra things, and people got really annoyed at them. And yeah, not a good idea. So tips for letters of recommendation: you definitely need to know your teachers really well, like all of them. I was known ever since elementary school for talking a lot in class, because I really enjoy talking. But it wasn't in the way, well, sometimes they would tell me I talk too much, but I didn't always talk just to other students and annoy the class. I talked a lot, I participated all the time in class. I asked a lot of questions whenever I had a question, and I would always talk to the teacher like for fun, because I think teachers are really interesting people. So I just like to talk to them. And I talk to them even if I don't think they're writing a letter of recommendation for me, because I just think they're interesting people. But it's really good because then you get to know your teachers really well. They get to know you better. So let's say each teacher needs to write about 30 letters of recommendation a year, which is a lot because they need to get through them all. They spend a lot of weekends doing it. And it's really nice because teachers aren't obligated to write letters of recommendation. They do it out of their own goodwill. If they said no to every student who asked, it wouldn't be taken off their pay grade, they couldn't be fired, nothing would happen to them. So they do it because they're nice. So you want to make it as easy for them as possible. So you get to know your teachers well. So they don't have to spend hours at their table trying to figure out what to say for you. It should be able to come naturally and easily to them. So obviously, this is something you guys already know, but you should always ask your teachers for advice, for suggestions, just to participate in class. I got letters of recommendations for these teachers before for different summer programs I wanted to do. I talked to my English teacher about different stuff I was writing, and I asked him if it was a good idea to write about. So I got to know him really well, and I like him a lot as a human being. I still go back and talk to him all the time. I asked him for advice on colleges too, and everything. So also for a guidance counselor, I would say this is really important as well, because most people do not get to know their guidance counselors. Each guidance counselor has about, at least my school is 400 students about per grade. So they have a third of those students. So there's 1,800 people in my school. They have about 500 students at a time, meaning they have about 125 students per grade that they're writing letters of recommendation for, which is a lot of letters of recommendations to write, 125. So most of these students never get to know their guidance counselor. They'll meet with them once a year because it's required, talk about their plans, and then that's it. But for some reason, I just really liked my guidance counselor. I had a lot of fun with her. I talked to her about different TV shows we watched together, and we would talk about what happened in the last episode or something. I would just go in and talk to her all the time. And she was great. She gave me all this advice about different scholarships I should apply for. She told me about different college stuff. She helped me actually come up with one of the topics for my Stanford essays, unknowingly. I was just talking about this, and she was like, I don't really like that topic, and I was like, oh, sorry. And then she helped me brainstorm a new one, and I ended up using it. So I think guidance counselors are definitely a great resource, and you should use them. Most people don't. And a side benefit of just getting information from them is that your guidance counselor or recommendation will then stand out as well, because they actually know you as a person. And if they actually know you as a person, that'll be a lot more useful, because they can say more about who you are in comparison to the rest of your school versus just class.
Do you actually get to see the letters yourself?
It depends. So some teachers allow you to see your letters of recommendation, some people don't. My English teacher said from the start to everybody he announced the class, he will never let anybody read one of his recommendation letters. But then teachers don't usually write bad things, they don't. If you were a good student and you didn't make them annoyed every day of their life, then they'll write something good about you, because they're not out there to harm you. Teachers are just there to try to help you get into a better college. But it's depending on how well you know them that they can actually help you even more. Because if they don't know you, even if they really want to help you, there's not much they can write about you anyway. So my math teacher, however, she asks us to do a very extensive questionnaire about ourselves in that class. And then I know that she uses the vast majority of what we put in there in her application. So you can. And then sometimes she'll come in and ask you to edit it. So I read my math teacher's letter of recommendation. She asked me to edit it, and then after I edited it, she just wanted me to make it a little shorter because it was a page and a half, and they're only supposed to be a page. But I was able to cut out parts that I didn't think were that useful, and then I was like, maybe this is a good idea. And she was like, oh, okay, yeah, because she liked me a lot and I liked her a lot, so we worked really well together. But I would say that if you know your teacher really well, then it's a more likelihood that they will definitely put good things. But it depends on the teacher as to whether or not they're going to let you read it. Your guidance counselor, my guidance counselor would not let me read her her recommendation letter, because I don't think they're allowed. I don't think my guidance counselor may be allowed to, or she just doesn't want to. I think it's a personal preference sometimes too. But I know that I really enjoyed her, and she liked me a lot. So I just I do think that she wrote me a good letter of recommendation. You should have faith in your teachers that they will write you one. You should also ask around to students in your school, because students in your school know who the good letter writers are. I knew that my math teacher was a fantastic letter recommendation writer, so I talked to students above me, and they were all like, yeah, she's good, you should try it, you want her. And I was lucky to just get her for 2 years as a teacher to be able to use her. But you should know, students are a really great resource too, because they know things, so they've just been through the process. Also, I would just say you should definitely show a genuine interest in the class as to what you're doing. I genuinely really enjoyed my calculus class. I had so much fun. I just like liked her so much. I don't really know why, but I thought she was a fantastic teacher. And then I also really enjoyed my English class a lot, and I would loved reading the stuff that he would make us read. They were really interesting short stories, really interesting novels. They were both very funny teachers, and I just had a great time in the class. So I think they can tell that I had a great time in the class as well. And that's something that they could add versus just saying, oh, she always did her homework, she was always on time to class or something. Do you have any questions for letter recommendations? Because I'm going to move on to extracurriculars.
Math teacher's name, last name.
Oh, Miss Korsunsky. She's Russian. She's Korsunsky. She's fantastic. She recently published a book called Math Boat. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. But, so the way she teaches is, some people don't like her. I liked her. But every day she would just have a PowerPoint. And you would walk into the class, sit down, she would go through the PowerPoint. And some people found it really boring, but I personally thought the things she said were funny. So I like to listen to see what the next funny thing that she was gonna say. And if you actually listen to her PowerPoints, they were really good. They explained things way better than I think lots of other things did. And if you had a question, one time I had a question for her, and it wasn't in her PowerPoint, so she went home, edited the entire PowerPoint, came back on Monday, because it was a weekend, and then was like, here, I added it to my PowerPoint, and now she's going to use it for future years. So she takes student input very much into consideration, and I think her PowerPoints were really great. So her book is called Math Boat, and it's just a compilation of all of her PowerPoints. And it's a detailed explanation. I know she has a fantastic track record for AP exams. She did, all of her students typically passed the test. I know when I first had her for pre-calculus, every student she had passed the AP exam. I think she had 98 students, 93 of them got a 5. 4 of them got a 4, and 1 of them got a 3. So she's really good. I liked her a lot. Her PowerPoints were fantastic. I liked her a lot. Some people don't, but I just thought she was a good teacher. I think it really depends on if you actually want to pay attention in her class, though. It's easy to fall asleep, I will say that. But if you fall asleep, you miss out a lot, because then you go home and you don't know how to do the homework. And I don't know, I just think in general, paying attention in class is important. I never really had a problem with having to study too hard for my tests. I think the students who do have problems with that either didn't learn the coursework enough, so maybe the way the teacher teaches just doesn't appeal to them, or they just don't pay attention in class necessarily. Because I think if you pay attention, they say a lot of things in class that are actually useful on tests, which is surprising, not really, but I don't know, some students just think that they can go home and study for it on their own, but then that's more time that they have to spend studying on their own versus just paying attention in class and they have to be there anyway.
I have a question. So you mentioned it's better for the recommendation letter to come from a humanity major teacher. So what if it comes from a Chinese teacher or Spanish teacher? Would that carry less weight than from a core class teacher?
So I don't know for sure. I would say that I think it wouldn't carry less weight per se, but it would be something that would stick out to them. It's oh, why did you ask your Spanish teacher? Because it's an elective class, right? It's if I asked, I don't know, I didn't take that many electives in high school actually, because we didn't have that many options at Lynbrook. But that would be equivalent to, I think, if I just asked one of my principal's a business teacher instead of an English teacher, and they'd be these are core subjects that every student should know. Every student should know math, every student should know English. I go into college expecting that they're to take more class in the subject, but not necessarily to take more in Spanish. So you want to see how you interact in those classes, I think. So my friend who did her French teacher, it's because she applied thinking that she was very into culture. So it made sense for her to ask her French teacher, because she was I really like culture. She got into a special program at Columbia where you study for 2 years in France and then come back for 2 years and study in Columbia. So it made sense for her to ask her French teacher. So that's why I said it's a lot about what kind of person you're trying to apply for. So, but I think in general, if you're not doing something interesting like that, culture like that, it's a little strange maybe to ask your language teacher. I don't know if it'll put too much of a detriment, but I think they will wonder why you didn't ask a core subjects teacher. Yeah?
You've been mentioning French teachers, English teachers, and such. Are you allowed to ask your PE teacher? I mean, because if you feel like your PE teacher knows you the best, is that have you ever heard of anyone asking?
I've never. So you go to Lynbrook, right?
Yeah.
You're going to Lynbrook, yeah, in a few years. So you only take PE freshman and sophomore year, and you don't have it anymore. So you wouldn't even have it as a junior. In addition, I don't know, like I said before, schools are primarily academic institutions. They want you to learn. So even if you get in as an athlete or as anything else, they still expect you to be learning in their academic environment. So I think that you can ask your PE teacher maybe for a supplemental letter, and they can just talk about like how fantastic you are. It's like maybe like it has to bring out something different in your application. So it'd be like maybe like how great of a friendly person you are, how much you like help them, like you would like help like coach like their basketball team or whatever. But I don't know, I wouldn't say to use it as one of your 2 core for sure. Like you wouldn't use it as your 2 core recommendations. And if you're gonna ask them for supplemental, it should definitely be something like that adds something, not just, oh, he was a great student, but like something about you. So like my supplemental, I wanted them to talk about my leadership. Should I move on?
Yeah.
Fine. So extracurriculars. Like I said before, in the common application, at least at this time, they might change it in a few years, they change it every once in a while. But at least at this time, like I showed you the picture before, there are 10 spaces for you to write your extracurricular activities. You don't need to feel the need to put amazing things in each one, because if you one, you're probably not going to have 10 ridiculously amazing things that you do, because otherwise you wouldn't be alive, you wouldn't sleep. But it's just something that you should have things to put, I would say. Like, I don't think it's a huge detriment if you leave spaces out, but it's obviously better if you have something there, like something valuable that you actually did, not something random you're putting there for the sake of putting something there, obviously. But there are 10 spaces for your extracurriculars. There's obviously a wide breadth of activities available. I'm gonna see, I don't really know how to go back, but I'm gonna show you the picture again. It's like a long time ago though. Yeah, right here. So this is the space where they have extracurriculars. So they wanna know the activity, there's a section there, and there's a drop-down menu of the options. So like debate/speech was one of them, and like government was one of them, and like journalism and publications one of them, and then they have like 1,000 for just sports. So you can just pick any one you want, general subject you're in. You mentioned the types of, like the grade that you were involved in, the hours per week, weeks per week, what time that you did them in, and then like a little, like tiny description. So for speech and debate, I didn't have space to write about like anything pretty much. So I wrote, led in nationally ranked 200-member like team, worked with 3 adult coaches, and then I ran out of space. So you really don't have that much space. So you have to summarize very concisely, which is why I'm always so surprised that colleges seem to do a good job picking their students, because there's like, I don't understand how they understand what these activities are with so little space, but they seem to know what's going on, so we'll just let them be.
I have a question for the,
okay.
How to write down your publish the newspaper for the 9, 10, 11, 12 is activity?
Okay, so newspaper?
Yeah.
So like school newspaper?
You publish it to the local news something.
Okay, I didn't put those in activities.
You don't put?
I put those in honors and stuff, and then I'll talk about this a little later. But there's also an option on the on the comment app where you can add additional information, and you can literally just upload your own Word document. So you can put anything you want in there. And then I couldn't fit all the places I published, so I added more there.
How about the magazine? You found the magazine.
That was on
there.
there.
Down there.
Mm-hmm.
So what's how many years you?
I started it at the end of my sophomore year, or I came up with the idea. I talked to all the teachers at the end of my sophomore year, got it established. It started at the beginning of my junior year. So if you see right here, those 2 checks, that was for overture. I didn't want to uncheck them all, so I just left them there.
So what's position for the magazine? You write down?
I wrote for position. I wrote founder and editor in chief. Yeah, and then for like the activity section, I wrote like publication or something, because it's a drop-down menu. It's pretty self-explanatory. There's only a certain amount of options you can put. So, and then for president, I just put like president, comma, like speech and debate at the very top right here, and on the bottom is when you write like this little bit about what you did. I did not do any sports because I'm not very athletic. So I decided to pursue my interests elsewhere. I think it would have been a fun experience and I would have enjoyed doing it, but I like can't. I am not a fast runner. So, like I said, like there's a wide breadth of activities that you can participate in. You can definitely put sports down. Lots of people are like captains of their sports teams, they put it down. Academic competition, like people put that they participate in science fairs, Intel, like Google Science Fair, all these things. You put down speech and debate. If you're part of any business groups like Future Business Leaders of America or DECA, which I don't know what it stands for. If you like started your own company, if you're really into music, if you like performed in your school theater, if you really enjoy doing art, or like and you're like part of your art, or if you did like community service. Like, a lot of people start their community service organizations, and then they like talk about like a project they started. Like a parent, like a trip, 3 siblings at my school. they started something called like Youth Impact, and it's just something, they went to Tibet once, realized how these students don't have educational opportunities, and they started this thing, and they like volunteer and they try to raise resources and money every year to send to like these specific schools. And then right now I think like they're all in Tibet trying to like help these students and like teach them. And I look at the pictures online and it looks like a really great experience. I wish I could have participated in something like that, but by the time like I realized that was an option, I had already really established what I was doing and I couldn't really branch out and do something else. There's a lot of things that you can do. And if you don't think there's enough opportunities, like start your own opportunity. I started my literary magazine. Like if you don't like it, if you don't like something at your school, just like make it. You have opportunities. Teachers love it. Like parents, just like adults, I think in general, really love it when they see students wanting to do something. Because they're just like, oh, it's so great that you want to do something. And they really like to help you. Like that's what I realized. My guidance counselor just loves helping me with whatever I want to do. Oh, like when I went to the middle school and I asked to start it, they were so excited that we wanted to start something to help their students. Like they just love it if you do it and you see it, you tell them your purpose and why you want to do it. They'll definitely want to try to help you out. Okay. So in addition, I would say again, like definitely like do what you're interested in. Like I enjoy public speaking. I enjoy like organizing different things for my team and organizing things for my magazine. And I really enjoy like writing, and I really enjoy publishing, and I enjoy like communicating with other people. So I did what I liked in high school, and it's obvious in your application if you actually liked it or if you did it. Like people might think you're able to like sway in such a way to like think that, oh, they look like they're passionate, but I think it's really obvious when like true passion comes through that you actually enjoy what you're doing. And college like admissions officers are trained, like they know what they're looking for. So they're, even if like it may not be obvious like the general population, if you're actually interested in college, admissions officers are specifically like known for knowing if you're actually doing these things and what they're good at, because this is what they do for a living. So do what you're interested in. Like colleges definitely want to see that. People I know who did really well in college applications or college admission season, they did it because they didn't do 100 different clubs. They weren't president of like 50 clubs and then try to put all that on their application to show how well-rounded they are. They showed that they had like a true unique thing that they wanted to do. So I would say that these are like an example of valuable activities. It's obviously not exhaustive of the list. I know tons of people who get into like Stanford or get into a lot of other schools, and they are really into theater, and that's the main thing they did, and they get in because people find them as interesting students, that they want to participate in like their theater troupe, or they want to just have around on campus. But because I was more involved in the academic schedule, this is just what I know is what like tends to be like valuable activities. So I would say like once again I want to stress that schools are like foremost academic institutions. They want to see scholars, they want to see students who can learn, which is why I think academic writing is super important. Like I said, there's this one history review. It's like the only one for high school students in the nation called the Concord Review. I think it just turned online, just turned like electronic to an online paper. But my sister spent like over 100 hours, I remember her junior year, writing a paper on Woodrow Wilson and something else. Woodrow Wilson's like 14 points and like the Tiananmen movement or something, like Tiananmen Square, and how they connected to each other. And she enjoyed history a lot. She had her history teacher help her write it. So even during the summer, even in the school year on weekends, she would email her paper to her teacher would edit it and send it back to her. And they would be doing this forever. They still are great friends. They keep in touch, I think. I don't really know. She's off in Virginia doing something. So, and then she got it published in this journal. And this journal is very well known. Like, it is the only high school literary journal for history. The acceptance rate is about the same as colleges, I think, like 7%. And even just writing, like she got into Yale before her paper, before they got back to her and told her paper was published, because they liked the fact that she was doing something academic. They liked the fact that she was interested in history and she wrote like a 30-page paper on history. Like that just shows that she's a scholar, and it shows that she enjoys like doing academic things. And then lucky for her, it ended up being published. But it wasn't actually something that came out before she got into college. But even just doing something like that is useful. I know a lot of people who they do internships with professors. So from, I don't know what age you're allowed to start at. I think it's like 16. But you can like intern at like, a lot of like Stanford professors sometimes need help with their science experiments. A lot of them, like Santa Clara University, I know a lot of people help. You have to reach out and like ask these people though. Like a lot of it's just about taking initiative. Like everyone I know who researches at Stanford with like professors, they do it because like they reached out to this professor. It definitely helps if you have connections. So I would say that, like, most of them I know that do intern there, they intern because, like, they knew the professor from somewhere, or like their parents have gone to Stanford and know these professors they helped out, or like their parents work at Stanford. But it's definitely not undoable to do it on your own, but it's definitely more helpful if you have connections, I would say. Most people I know did it because they had connections there. So in addition, I think speech and debate is something very, very valuable. Obviously I would say this because I was very involved in speech and debate, but I think it really helps shape like exactly who I am. Not even in terms of just college, but I remember when I first like joined high school, I joined it because I thought I slurred my words a little bit, and I thought I kind of spoke like a little strangely, and I wasn't as eloquent as I wanted to be. So I joined it, and even if your speech and debate program at your school isn't the best, like I just learned so much from just like participating or just like listening to my coaches or my captains, and just like going to tournaments. Like even if I didn't do that well, and there's definitely a period where I didn't do well because it was like the very beginning, like you just learn a lot even from just participating. So I learned like how to speak, and that's where I really got into how I learned to write, which is what branched off to like everything else I did. When I did my youth commission experience, the reason I think I got it is because I had to interview with my council member. There were roughly like 20 other applicants, I think, but they thought that the way I spoke and like what I was saying was really valuable in the way I said it. And they thought, okay, she can like lead like the council, and she can like represent and like participate. So then I think that's, well, they didn't tell me why, but this is why I hypothesized why they decided to choose me for the council. And like in general, not only do I think it's really valuable for college applications, because they know, like colleges know how academic and how intense and like difficult speech and debate is. Like knowing that you have to write your own stuff, present it like for a bunch of people, and how there are competitions everywhere, and how it's really, really, really just like a really good academic experience. They know that. So even like participating is valuable, but also just in how it helps you, which is like not only like yourself and interacting, but also how it helps you get other positions as well, I think. So I would say speech and debate and competitions are the one thing in which you don't really need necessarily like an officer position, if that makes sense. Like, because they're intrinsically valuable as activities themselves. Like, just doing speech and debate is valuable. Just participating in the competitions, you can do really well. Like, I know someone, I think he lives in Southern California. He's going to Harvard next year. He wasn't really an officer in his, he was kind of an officer in his speech and debate team, but it wasn't an important officer. They kind of just gave him a position for the sake of giving him a position. But it wasn't president or anything. The president's actually going to Yale, but but what he did was he was amazing at speech and debate. Like he was just so good. He won like the Harvard tournament, which is like 5 countries participated, and there's like 400 students. He won it. So even if he didn't have an officer position in the thing, just doing the activity itself has value, I think. In addition, I think that science and math competitions are very useful. I know lots of people going to MIT who just did lots of math competitions, and they didn't have like officers. They didn't even participate in like any school clubs, I don't think. What they did was math. They studied math all the time. They went to math camps over the summer. They did like USMA, which I don't know if you guys know. Yeah, it's like you take the AMC, then if you pass that, you take the AME. If you pass that, you like take the USMA, I think. I don't really know all the levels, but like that's what happens. Lindbergh had like 6 this year, I think, which is an insane amount, and especially considering it's a public school. But it's just a really good support system that I have. And Ms. Korsunsky, who was my math teacher, is the one that's like in charge of like these math people. Like they go to her class, and like she like has math club, and they do like after school competitions like in her room. So she's a really great math resource, and I think Lindbergh's very lucky to have her. But that's what they do, and they also take like different Olympiads. So I didn't know this existed either, and I really wish I did in like the beginning of freshman year, so maybe I would have liked science a lot. But there's a lot of different, like there's like USABO, and it's the biology Olympiad. And somebody who's going to MIT from Bellarmine this year, like placed like #1 in this thing or something. He also won this speech and debate, like state debate tournament. But aside from that, he was very good at a lot of things. And he's going to MIT. His brother actually teaches here. But and then there's USMO, which is like math. There's chemistry Olympiads. There's physics Olympiads. There's like, and these are like a lot of different opportunities that you can just take. Your school definitely offers them. If they don't, find a way to get to take these if you're interested in these subjects, because I think they're very, very valuable. We have lots of physics like semifinals Olympiads every year, and then like they become finalists. I don't know exactly how the process works, but these things are out there and people do them and they do really well on them. And if they're very into science and technology, this is how they get like their opportunities. They do science fairs and they do USMO and stuff. I would say if you're doing science fairs, though, it's good to have an academic mentor. So I know at least for the Intel Science Talent Search, which is largely considered the most prestigious we have 4 semifinals and 1 finalist this year at Lynbrook. You need an academic mentor. Like, you need someone to write a letter of recommendation for you. Also, you just need the equipment to do your research. So you definitely do need like a laboratory or something that you can work in if you're going to do these science fair projects. You're going to have to find, like, I think the age is 16 to be able to start working in it. You need to get a mentor to do it. It doesn't matter if it's at Stanford or if it's at anywhere else, as long as you have a mentor who's able to do it, like, and help you do it. USUMO and USABO, I think in general, Lynbrook itself, or like any school that your students do go to, I assume that they all go to very good schools because they're all around here and all schools around here are good. But those like are very, at least at my school, very self-studying. I don't think they use tutors. Like, they're just good at math. Their teacher or their parents and their teachers taught them math from a young age, and then they work together to do these problems, and they just bounce off of each other. And they go home, they do practice sets or problem sets, and then they just take these tests, and they're very good at them.
So you need no teacher to give the instruction, they just the students and they write.
So I don't think they have like outside tutors is what I meant. I do think that the math teachers at school help them. And there's science teachers at school that definitely help our students find resources. One teacher at my school, her science teacher, her name is Miss Alonzo. She is like, she was the one that applied for the grant for Lynbrook to become the Intel Science School Distinction, which we ended up winning. And she was really good about helping students find opportunities, find grants, find research opportunities, and just like money to help them do what they were doing. That's why I say again, like, it's important to talk to your teachers because they're the ones that give you opportunities. Like, they help you do things, and they want to help you, but most students never ask them for help, so they just sit there and wait with help in their head. In addition, like, the state and national positions in large organizations, every year for the past 10 years, except for this upcoming year, Lynbrook has had a state officer in Future Business Leaders of America, which is the largest business organization. I might go a little overtime, I'm sorry. I like to talk. So they've always had a state officer. They have like state presidents frequently. They have national officers sometimes. And these are also opportunities that students in other schools don't take because they don't know they're there. But because Lynbrook has, and like, I know Monte Vista has a very good one too. Cupertino has a good one. Palo Alto I know is like really good at speech and debate at least. But they have like these organizations that have like these positions, or section positions, or state positions, like a state elected and appointed positions and national positions that you can have, but lots of people don't apply for because they don't know they're there. So some examples that at least I know of is Junior Statesman of America. It's called JSA. It's a political organization, and it runs like just like a political organization. Like, there's a national president, national governor, or state governor, like state. I don't know if there's like assembly members, but they have like officers there. And I know this year a couple of people from my school were on the state board for that. In addition, Future Business Leaders of America is a business organization. So is DECA. I don't know what it stands for though, but they're both business organizations. They compete against each other, and there are state, national, section positions for all of these as well. And getting started on these aren't necessarily early. I was in FBLA as a freshman. I didn't continue on because I found speech and debate to be a more valuable activity in and of itself. Like I said, doing speech and debate itself I think is helpful because you can do the competitions. FBLA competitions, I think colleges know, like, they have 60 like events in like hundreds of sections around the world, and in those 60 events, you can place top 10 in any of them. So you can imagine how many awards are given out every year. So getting an award from that isn't as valuable because like colleges know that it's really easy to get these awards. Which is why I say if you're doing these activities, like unlike speech and debate where just doing it can be valuable, for FBLA I think if you're gonna get value out of it, you need to like get large positions, like large officer positions. So, someone I know who, she was a couple years back, she was FBLA's National Western Region Vice President, went to Lynbrook, California State President, our Lynbrook chapter president, and now that was like her main thing. She did FBLA and that's what she did. And now she's off at Harvard. But it's not because she did the club FBLA, it's because she went so far in the organization and she did something with it. So it depends on what the organization is. Like the stuff I have up here, you don't necessarily need an officer position. I would say it's helpful to get one in speech and debate if you can. But for the ones below, these are like organizations for leadership. Like this is what it's for. FBLA is business, but if you're gonna get far in it, you want to get a large position to do it. And that's what's really helpful, I think. Not necessarily just doing the activity itself.
I have a question for the first one, academic writing. I saw you have a lot of experience for the published paper to the newspaper or some magazine. Can you give some detail? Do you have some tutor
Sure.
instruction or guiding for this one?
So she asked about like how I was able to like publish things in
Yeah.
like academic places. I did it on my own. So I liked writing. My school didn't offer any resources really because there's not many you can offer. So I would spend hours at home, and my mom would get mad at me for being on my computer so much. But I was doing real work, so I was like, I'm doing work, leave me alone. So, and I would do it. I would research for like a really long time about like different academic papers. So I would look up like where to publish like high school papers, and I would be really active in looking at it all online. So me publishing like Imagine magazine, I didn't actually know it was sponsored by CTY. I just found it online. I published in like national like literary magazines and like Huffington Post and all these different places. It's because I like was on the internet for a really long time looking for these opportunities. And that's something else I was going to talk about too. It's like it's a valuable thing to do because they know like. I think my guidance counselor talks about, she told me in her application, like in her recommendation letter, she told me that what she did was talk about how I took initiative to find these on my own. And they like that because they think that means I'm going to take advantage of the resources at their school, and I didn't just sit there and have everything handed to me. So I would take time. I looked for these papers. I know my sister looked for the Concord Review. People I know who publish science papers or economics papers at my school, they look for these as well. I don't have like an exhaustive list because I'm sure there's more that I haven't tried doing, but I don't know, for example, like the science journal that I published, but I'm pretty sure it's easy to find like online because I googled everything that I found on my own. For like literary, like for my other papers, though, what I would do was I would find the website and I would see like there was always like a little tab called like submissions or something. I would click that and they would tell you exactly what to do. Like it's all online, just most people never go out and look for it is the problem.
So
and
most of you from the online internet, and some is from the online, right?
I'm sorry?
Most of you found from the internet.
Yeah.
And some is from internet, online,
So,
not a direct contact person.
No, so it depends. So when I did, for example, like most of my like magazines, for like the poetry that I published at places, I just emailed it, I submitted it, and they would tell me if I got it. And sometimes I got it, sometimes I didn't, but I was okay with that because I would submit like to a lot of different places. And then for example, for the what, I published an article in CTY's Imagine magazine about a summer program that I took at Yale a few years ago. And what I did was, she specifically says on the CTY Imagine magazine like submission page, they don't want you to submit completed essays, they only want the ideas that you want to write about, and then if they like your idea, they'll work with you on it. So that's what I did. I submitted like 5 ideas. She got back to me like 2 months later after I even forgot about it, and was like, we want you to write about this. So I wrote a first draft, sent it to them, they sent it back with edits, I sent a second draft until they were okay with it.
So what year come? The summer camp you?
I went the summer before my junior year, so when everyone else was studying for SATs.
Okay.
So it was the summer before 11th grade.
So Yale summer camp, what's the name?
Oh, it's called, it used to be called Ivy Scholars Program. I think they changed the name this year. I think now it's called Global Scholars Program or something. It's at Yale University. I don't know if it was necessarily that valuable. I had a good time, but now that I think back on it, like the students, let me say this, like the students who went to this camp did like amazingly. I'm tracking their progress for colleges. I still talk to them, we became really good friends. 2-week program, but like they did really well. Like there were about 60 students at my camp. I was counting a few years ago. I was an incoming junior, there were also incoming seniors. I think 6 of them are going to Harvard, and like 4 of them are going to Yale, 3 of them are going to Stanford. There's like 1 at Columbia. There's like 4 of them at Princeton. Like they do really well, but I don't think it's because of the program itself. I think it's because of the type of people who decided to look for this program and then decide to do it. Not because colleges saw, oh, they went to the Ivy Scholars Program, they're fantastic, but because, not even because they went to the program at all, but because the type of person that decided to apply for the program also did a lot of amazing things in their free time as well. Like I know that the application acceptance rate when I was there was like 33%, which is fairly low, but not like amazingly low. This year it dropped to under 20. But I still think it's not the program itself that got them in. It's just the fact that they decided to take initiative means that they took initiative in other parts of their lives as well.
So we can find from the website.
How to apply?
Yeah.
Oh, certainly. The application deadline is in May though, so it would have passed for this year already. And you have to be at least an incoming sophomore for one of the camps and like an incoming junior or senior for the other one, I think.
So all this summer camp program, you got the information from your school or your
I got it from myself, and from a lot of students who I know who've gone to the programs before. So I was going to talk a little bit about tips for high school and college. I could write a list of like, I don't actually have this here because I thought I'd run out of time, which apparently I am going to, but I can write like a list of really valuable, I think, summer programs that I know people did. Yeah. Is there a marker? Okay, I'll write it later then. So yeah, so these are just valuable activities that I think. A lot of people I know also just did music really heavily, and now one guy I know who did, he was fantastic at clarinet. Like he was first chair in the California Youth Symphony, like the senior orchestra. His name was like Jeff. He goes to Columbia, and they just do really well. I know someone else who's really good at clarinet. He's going to go to Princeton. Someone else who's really good at piano. She's going to University of Chicago. She played at Juilliard like 3 times. Not Juilliard, sorry, Carnegie Hall, which is like just as impressive. So, but she was like very good at piano, and they just do things, and it also makes them stand out. Cause I would say like a lot of activities. Somebody asked me this like what activities to participate in. It's not necessarily like which ones you do. These are the ones that I think are most valuable in general, but like what you do with them. So just playing piano and saying I played piano for 10 years doesn't really do anything, because anybody can play piano for 10 years. It's what can you do that like other people didn't do. Like can you play at Carnegie Hall? Like, can you win these competitions? Can you become like a state officer in these organizations? Because that shows like your communication skills, because you have to be elected. Or like, can you do well in speech and debate? Are you able to write? Or like, are you able to take the initiative to write at least? Because my sister's wasn't even published before she like got into Yale. So it's a lot about like what you do with the activities more so than what they are. So I know a lot of people think that like maybe like I regret a little bit quitting flute, but I also wasn't amazing at it, which is why I didn't think it would be like valuable for me to continue. And sometimes I would resent practicing. But I know some people who love the instruments they play and they do really well at them. So that's good. And you can do competitions, even if you just want to do it for fun. You can at least like send in like a supplemental music like thing when you go to college, and they can listen to you play and be like, I love the way you play, we want you at our school. Like it just works with what you do with what you have, I think, more so than the activities. But these are the ones that I think are like the most valuable, because getting in as like a recruited athlete, I think is far more difficult. Or it's like not more difficult, it's easier to get into top colleges if you're good at it, but you have to be really good at it to be recruited. And you have to be like very good at music and very good at art. But if you're very good at it, that's good, it'll help you. So, do you have any more questions about extracurriculars?
So like for each activity, you only have like very little space actually to describe what it is. I mean, how does, I mean, you could spend years doing that. How does that shine through to the reviewer's eye, for example? How does?
So he just wants to know like with the little space that we have, how we're able to like write so much about an activity we participated for so long in. That's something that I think every like applying student gets frustrated. I got so frustrated, and I tried to like shorten my words and get like choose synonyms that had one shorter letter so I could fit it in. And it is really frustrating, but I think that one, colleges like know like what it is. Like they're very good at discerning like if it's a valuable activity or not. 2, you have your essays portion to expand on stuff that you like better. So I liked overture a lot, so I wrote about that in my short essay. I got a supplemental letter for my debate, so I got debate out there. I really didn't have too much for youth commission, to be honest, because I didn't want to give them too much information. But you also have an additional information section that you can just upload your own Word document. So that's where I put my additional like things that I published that I couldn't fit additionally. I also put a section for speech and debate, wrote about a couple of competitions that I did well in, and then wrote about how I managed like the middle school branch and how I did like the annual speech and debate summer camp that I could not fit in just saying lead a 200-member speech and debate team. But you should only add information you think is valuable. Like I felt my speech and debate team was different than others because we had those 2 extra things and we were such a big team. So that's why I put that stuff in there. But I didn't want to add information that they didn't need. Do you have other questions, or should I move on to essays?
For your writing, did you get any tutor, or you pretty much just do it on your own?
For publishing?
Yeah.
I didn't have a writing tutor.
How about just for your writing skills?
No.
No.
My mom, I don't really remember writing when I was in elementary school, but my mom told me I always wrote well. I'm gonna believe her because I don't remember, but she told me that like, it was just something I really liked all the time. So like if there's something that your like child really likes all the time, it's something they're probably good at, and something they should pursue further. I didn't really realize I was good at writing until like freshman, sophomore year. I didn't really publish anything because I was like, oh la la la, I'll like write my essays for school, get good grades, and that was it. And then junior year, I like had my teacher. I was talking about my English teacher, and like the stuff that he would give me, like the articles we would read and short stories, I thought were so good and I loved them, and I wanted to do stuff like that. So then I started looking for these opportunities. So I was a little late on the game, I guess, but I like just caught up with like doing lots of research and like publishing in lots of places.
So how about the writing competition? You said you
Essay competitions.
writing competition. You started from the also from the sophomore.
Yeah, I didn't submit to an essay competition until junior year. So I just happened to submit, and like I remember like one essay competition. It's called the Holocaust Remembrance Essay Competition, because I'm also very interested in like things that have happened in the world. So I like to research about the Holocaust a lot and like exactly what went on and like how we can prevent it. So I wrote an essay competition. It was 1,500 words submitted to this competition, and then I ended up getting 1 of 10 second place prizes. So they told me that 2,300 people submitted from 3 continents. With like vocabulary sometimes and like SAT essay, but what I write, like I just like enjoy writing. And I realized the first time I wrote, like my first thing I published was in a magazine called Kid Spirit. It's fairly easy. I think it's a global public kid, like kid as in child, and spirit. So it's not too large of an organization. I found it. It seemed like fairly easy. So I said I wanted to write about like animal rights, and they were like, okay. And then I submitted a first draft. They sent it back to me. Same thing as the CTY Imagine. But then after I did that one essay, it took me forever. Like I spent weeks on it. Now it's really easy for me to write. Like I write really quickly. I finish like essays like in a day, and then I like publish them places. And it's a lot easier. So it's a lot just about practice. I think I was naturally like I really enjoyed writing, and I was like fairly good at it. So it was easier for me. But if not, like maybe a tutor would be helpful. I know students who publish who also have tutors, but I never used one.
You never attended any writing class either?
Let me think. I don't think I did. I went to speech and debate camps. I went to that summer program at Yale. Yeah, I don't remember ever attending like a writing class on how to write.
And for speech and debate, besides going to that camp in Yale and probably your teacher at school, is there any other tutor or any other classes you took?
No. Because the thing about speech and debate is most clubs, at least, should have should have a coach. So we hire, like Lilbrook hires a coach who's like an experienced speech and debate person. So they're kind of like your personal tutor if you need them. Obviously, speech and debate, mine was 200 people, it's really large. But most of the time what our coaches do is they come and they sit there and they wait for people to ask them for help. So sometimes they'll teach like classes or the different, because speech and debate has many different events, right? I would say one event your students should do, and I wish I had done it, but I didn't, was spontaneous speaking. Because it's like an amazing skill to learn how to just speak on the spot and know what you're going to say and just talk about current events. It keeps you really up to date. I unfortunately only did debate, and I wish I'd done spontaneous speaking, but I went to lots of spontaneous speaking practices, and then I learned stuff there as well about how to stand, how to speak. I'm not standing now because it will be tiring to stand for too long, but yeah, so we have coaches there to help. My team at least has a speech coach, has a debate coach, and has like another speech coach. So we have multiple, and they come to practices at different times, and if you need help, you go up and you just ask them for help, and they can help you. Some people I know do hire private tutors. My sister, she did speech and debate as well. She hired a private speech and debate coach for a while, but all he did was like edit the stuff she was writing, and she decided that she didn't want to do it anymore, so she stopped. But some people do hire private ones. They do turn out to be very valuable, but I never did. I thought my speech and debate program was established enough that it had the resources I needed. But some speech and debate programs I know aren't the same way, in which case you might want to consider hiring someone like that. Do you have any other questions? I'm gonna just move on to like what I think works and like some tips. So something that I think really worked for me is I started very early. Like I knew from freshman year that I wanted to be involved with stuff. So what I like to say is like you want like a pyramid structure. Freshman year, I joined a bunch of different clubs, went to a bunch of different things, found out what I liked, cut down on like 2 clubs sophomore year, so I only had I had 2 fewer clubs. Junior year, cut down even more. And then by that time, I had really solidified what I was going to do. And senior year, I would have the time, because I'd had all 4 years to go through the entire process. So a lot of people like think that freshman year is like too early to start. I don't think so. I know people who start junior year, sometimes they do really well as well, but it's harder because if you start from junior year when you realize college applications are coming, you only have 2 years to pursue something you really like and get farther in it. Versus me, like being in speech and debate, I have 4 years to like climb up and become president. I have 4 years to do competitions, get better at the activity. and I like more time to just expand what I was doing and go further in that field than like most other people go. If you start too late, then you don't have as much time, and you'll just feel more rushed if you're doing other things. Another thing that I found really valuable was I talked to older students and like I said, I talked to teachers. They gave me tons of advice. My guidance counselor, I would go into her and I would show her my essays and she would help me edit them. I talked to older students who had gone through the experience I had gone through, and they would tell me, this is a valuable summer class, oh, don't take this class, it's not useful, oh yeah, this SAT is not that bad, here's some workbooks you should use, here's an activity I really liked. The way I got actually involved in the youth commission was I applied for it 8 hours, I found out about it 8 hours before the deadline to apply for it. I was friends with a student who is currently what I am now, the youth commissioner. And I like talked to her, we were friends. She was a student who took the SAT classes with my sister, so our families like knew each other. And then I was just on GChat, like doing whatever, chatting with my friends, and then she chatted to me and she's like, I think you should join this. And I was like, why? And she was like, it was really valuable, I had a lot of fun. I was like, okay, fine, I'll apply, whatever. So I applied, I got my interview, I happened to get in, went to my first meeting and realized I really liked it. And then because I had started so early from freshman year and I had talked to students, I had time to like become an officer in the council and then become like the commissioner. So I didn't just start from junior year because you want time to go somewhere. And talking to older students is really how you can get a lot of the opportunities and figure out what they were doing, what they thought was valuable, and what like they think worked for them. Also, I think something that was valuable for me was I solidified my passion really early. I told you, like, I didn't start doing actively writing until junior year, but I'd always been really interested in writing. I had done speech and debate and the youth council since freshman year, and I knew, like, from the start those were the two things I wanted to do. The extra clubs, I quickly knew that I didn't want to do them, and I dropped them really quickly, and I didn't participate in them after that. And so because I did that, not only did I free up my schedule to do what I really enjoyed, but I also had time to, like, on top of that, I had time to, I guess, like figure out that this is what I liked, develop my stuff early, and show colleges like as a side benefit that I knew like what I wanted to do with my life. Like I knew this is what I like, not this is just what I'm playing around with and this is what I happen to be good at. So like I said, they want like, I would say colleges want, and this is on my next slide, but colleges want like a well-rounded class. People, I think, sometimes mistaken that for they want well-rounded students, so they try to do music, theater, sports. And you can't do really well in any of them. What they want is lots of people who come up together to make a well-rounded class. So you want to be that one person who will make up that part of like the circle or the well-roundedness, like that person. So I was that person who liked public speaking, I liked leadership, and I liked writing, and I liked publishing, and I liked like helping back. And it's all kind of tied together because everything I did had that sort of aspect to it. So I had that passion early, and I think it showed through my application that this is what I liked doing. In addition, I think me taking initiatives and pursuing opportunities beyond high school, since colleges know this as well. Like they know, for example, that Limbrook is like kind of techie, and they know that I can take these classes and these are the clubs that are offered. But they also know that the vast majority of the things I did do were not in school. Like the only thing I did that was related to actually school was speech and debate. Everything else, my youth council, I found it on my own. It's an outside organization that I joined. I took, I would like to say I took the initiative, but luckily someone told me to do it. Overture, my literary magazine, I took the initiative to go to Miller and found it with my friend, who also took the SAT classes with me, so that was a good bonding moment. So we founded it together. I took the initiative to find all of the pieces I published, and I took the initiative to write them and try to publish them. And I found my essay competitions, and I was the one that wrote them and then submitted them on my own. So I think they know that, and then they know that I would take advantage of the resources that that school has to offer, and I wouldn't just sit there and be like dead weight in the class, and I'd do something with it. I think that's something they would really appreciate as well. Additionally, I think that even though I was like always very motivated throughout high school, I would say, I did things like, I was always doing something. Like freshman year, I was in a bunch of things. Sophomore year, I was doing a bunch of things. Like, even if it took me time to figure out what I wanted to do, I was consistently doing something. I didn't wait until, I didn't have like, sometimes I would have like a week where I didn't want to do anything, but I'd always get back on it and like do stuff. So like, especially for grades, what I would always do is I would work really hard in the beginning of the year to make sure all my grades were fine, they were high enough, and that way even if they took like hits, and even if like my grade dropped, I wouldn't be in any place where I had to spend hours studying to try to bring it up again. Some students I know do the opposite. In the beginning of the year, they focus on their extracurriculars, and then by the end, their grades are at like 88s or 87s, and then they have to study for like a week like nonstop just to get like a grade on the final, and I think that adds a lot of unnecessary stress. Like I never felt stressed out about my finals because I would like focus on my grades in the beginning to make sure they were okay, so I wouldn't have to worry about them and I could do other stuff. It gives me more flexibility, I thought. So I had like I didn't have a schedule per se. Like I wasn't like Monday 3 to 5 I would do this, Tuesday I would do this, but I knew in general like what I should be doing, when I should be doing it. Sometimes I would like on Post-its I would write little notes for what I had to do for that day, but that was about it. Like I just like had things in my head about like I should be doing this, like this is what I need to get done by this weekend, and whenever I had time I would just do it. So a couple of tips for high school I would say is like you should definitely pursue your passion. Like I wouldn't have, if I decided to do chemistry or physics because I thought that's what college liked best, I don't really enjoy chemistry or physics, so I would have like forced myself to do it. It would have been a lot harder for me to get myself to do it, and I think it would have been clear to college that I was just doing it for the sake of doing it. So what makes you really unique, and I think a lot of people, especially like in the Asian community, I think me doing public speaking and writing and publishing and working is something that's fairly unique, and I think they took note of that when they were doing it, especially Stanford because they're in this area, so they understand this area really well. So like I said before, they definitely want a well-rounded class. That's why they take different athletes, they take musicians, they take other people who only do these subjects. And so I know sometimes at my school, people who get into art or music, like people resent them because they're like, you guys didn't like study that hard in school. But it's not about that, right? It's about being like an interesting person that colleges want to take. So they knew what they were doing, they knew they liked art, and they pursued it, and they got into good colleges. In addition, you should definitely take time, like in the beginning, to think about what you actually like. In the beginning of freshman year, I looked at the list of clubs my school had to offer. I decided these were the ones I wanted to do. I like joined a bunch. Even if like I didn't think I'd pursue them, it's better to just join them to figure out like maybe you'll like it on a whim. Just like I like the youth council on a whim. Someone just decided to tell me to apply for it, and it's just stroke of luck. So you need to start really early. Also, another benefit is colleges can really tell if you're doing things like before the application, like I said before. So I showed you in the beginning of what the Common App looks like. There's like a list of grade levels you have to check when you did them. If all of yours are checked for only grades 11 and 12, they know you joined everything right away just for colleges. But if you start from the beginning, like freshman, sophomore year, you were already really involved in it, they know you've been actually interested, you were actually doing this for a very long time because you liked it. And then that's the kind of person they want, not someone who joins right at the end to try to get as many things on their application as possible. In addition, I think that doing like, I don't know if you've ever heard like breadth not depth, or like depth not breadth. Meaning like breadth just doing as many things as possible, and depth doing like 2 things and going really deep in them. Like I don't really think it's like that. I would say if you had to stress one, it would definitely be depth, because I did like 3 main activities: debate, youth council, overture. Did those really heavily, and then on my own I did like writing really heavily, but that was a very flexible thing I could do whenever I wanted. But I know someone who, for an anecdote, was like an officer in 8 clubs at campus. He was like president of like 3 of them. It was crazy. He did so many things, but they were all different. Like one was a business organization, one was community service, one was politics, one was like cancer research or something. It was just so different that it looked like he didn't know what he was doing. He was sticking his fingers into everything he could do. So I would say that you need to do a couple different activities, definitely like a few of them, and go really deep in those activities. So it's kind of like a mix of both, which is obvious and it's always a balance, but like you need to do maybe like 3 activities is probably a good balance. Most people I know do like 3 good activities and went really far in those activities. So you can't just do one thing. If you do, like you might be able to get in, but it'll be harder because it'll look like you're not like multi-dimensional. You only know how to do this one thing, and if you get straight away, you won't know what to do. Like if you decide later on you won't like it. So I tried to show it like a myriad, like a public speaking, like I said before, communication, I liked speech and debate, I liked academic writing. So it showed like I had a myriad of interests that all focused in a similar place. So if I decided I didn't like one of them, I still had other things that I liked. I wasn't just stuck on this one thing. I wasn't narrow-minded about only doing like debate and nothing else or something. In addition, like I said before, be proactive, take initiative. They want people who will take advantage of the opportunities at their school and don't just expect everything to be handed to them, because that's not the way it works in the real world. And lastly, like I would say like academic excellence is still like #1. Like no matter how good you are at art or science or debate, if you don't have the grades to back it up to show that you're able to balance like an extracurricular life with actually doing well in their school, like it's not gonna matter, I don't think. Like the person I know who did a ton of different clubs didn't have like fantastic grades, and he was not very happy with like the college choices that he ended up having. Because like I said before, they're first and foremost like academic institutions, so that's what they want. So you need your grades, and you have to keep up with your grades. So this is the last slide I have before I go on to answer the questions that people asked. And first I would say start early. I did my college applications. I started like 2 weeks after high school got out for junior year. Like I did it in the summer. And the reason I did that is because senior year is so busy. First semester, senior year, was by far my busiest year. I was always up really late doing stuff because I had to balance everything I was doing. So if I had to balance writing my college essays during that time as well, I think it would have been very difficult for me to maintain my grade, do my extracurriculars, and write a good essay. So in the summer when I had a lot of free time, I still like hung out with people and I still had fun. But on top of that, I also started early. By the beginning of July, I think I had my essay topic settled. So I had like a list of topics I was potentially doing. My sister was a really good resource because she had gone through the process. So I like sent them to her, I looked at my parents, and I was like, what do you guys think is good? And it's not necessarily, it's a lot about like logic, because like college admissions officers are human. Like what looks good to one human probably looks good to another human as well. So like I took advantage of them. When I got to school, I asked my teachers for help as well. I didn't have like a college counselor like hold my hand every step of the way because I was just doing it on my own. Most people I think who I know use college counselors use it because they don't think they're going to be able to they're either like unsure about their extracurriculars and want like a little bit of fine tuning, which I understand, or they just like need someone to help them get through it. So someone I know had amazing extracurriculars but just didn't want to do his college applications. So we got a college counselor and she forced him to do it. And that's what he used her for mainly. So also I would say like you want to tell, like this is probably the best advice for like college applications, that you need to tell a story. And this is what almost every student I know who got into really good colleges is what they tell me to do. You have to tell a story with your applications. My story was writing was my passion. I did it even though like no one else in my school hardly, like they all did science. I pursued what I really enjoyed and I took the initiative for that, and I really enjoyed giving back to my community and helping them write as well. Through like Overture, like I helped other students write, and through like the youth commission, I helped other students as well get better in education. And through speech and debate, I did the middle school and I did the camp. So that was like my story. I had like everything I did had a certain purpose to it and all worked together to create like a central mission and like vision that I tried to like bring out in my application. And it's kind of hard to bring it out. You can't write this is my story, but through the different parts, I think it just comes together. Because it needs to show like you have a certain direction that you're heading with your life, I think. And also, I would say that emphasize your uniqueness and your passion. I think that something that probably helped for me was like coming from an Asian American community and being surrounded by like the STEM subjects. Like I think my guidance counselor told me, she talked about how Lynbrook is very math and science, but how I still like pursued my own passion and how I did that even though it wasn't like the community norm. And I think my college like took note of that, and then that's how they found out that my passion was really genuine, because I did it even though no one else was really doing it. I decided this is what I wanted to do. Also, I'd say you should probably focus on your most important activities, because like for example, I did FBLA and I did the competitions. I did fairly well in the competitions. I went to nationals and stuff, but I never spent a lot of time on it. I never studied for the competitions because, like I said before, there's so many, they're not that difficult. But I just did them because it was fun, I enjoyed it. But I really spent my most time in the activities I enjoyed the most, because that's what I could get out the most out of it. That's what colleges could see I got the most out of it. And that's how I think like even like moving forward, I'd be able to use the experiences I got that I actually enjoyed to like do something with it. Not just to get into college and realize I don't really know what to do anymore. And yeah, like I said, like people I know who try to balance too many things weren't that pleased. A lot of people think I balance a lot, but the things I do, like debate, is like flexible. It's not the way a sport is that you must go to practice all these times. Speech and debate, I went to practice when I could. My youth council, because I was the chair, I could schedule things around my schedule. Overture, I started, so I put the meetings on days that I could do, and then writing was obviously very flexible. I just did it whenever I could. So like it's a lot about like how you balance your schedule. I can't say specifically like what you need to do, but coming up with a way that you know when you're gonna do each thing is probably valuable. Like I knew I was gonna study for my SAT Thursday when I got home, and it was a schedule, so if I didn't do it, I would know I flaked out on doing it, and I would feel bad about that. And it's just schedule, and like I said, like you should definitely tell a story, like have a purpose to what you're doing. Because you can get into a college still if you do a lot of things that aren't part of your story, but I don't think those things are the things that help you. Like I think those things are just extra things you did, and it just turned out to be dead weight, and they liked you for one thing you did. But hopefully you don't want to do other things that won't help you at all. You want to do a lot of things that will all help you in some way, shape, or form. So these are the questions that were asked. I just put, there's more on other slides. The first ones were which APs and SAT subjects. Like I said before, I took SAT Math 2, I took SAT History, and I took SAT Literature. Most people I know take SAT Chemistry though, because you take that sophomore year. That's before you get really busy, so they like to study for that. For APs, junior year, I took AP US History, AP Language and Composition, and AP Calculus, BC. So it's a higher level of AP Calculus. There's an AB and there's a BC. I took BC. I would recommend if you can take BC because they know the difference, but it's probably not the end of the world if you take AP. In addition, they asked me how you joined the San Jose.
What about 12th grade?
Oh, sorry, yeah. So 12th grade, I only took AP, so I didn't take any like other classes. I took AP Literature and Composition, which is a different one. AP Statistics, because that was the next math level in my school after you pass calculus. You go to statistics. I took AP Physics C Mechanics. That's the only AP Physics offered at my school. Some people found it really easy. I thought it was like okay. I took AP Government and Politics. My school doesn't have an AP Economics, otherwise I would have taken that as well. And AP Government is a semester-long class. The next semester you take Economics. And I took, was that 5 already?
No,
AP Lit, AP Gov, I took AP Spanish, yeah, I took AP Spanish. I actually didn't take a language in middle school, which I regret. So that means that technically you can't reach the AP level, because maybe some schools, I know level 4 is the AP level, but for my school, level 5 is. So I took Spanish 1, Spanish 2, Spanish 3, freshman, junior, and sophomore year. And then I skipped Spanish 4 honors and took Spanish AP, because I wanted to take the AP class. But, like, hopefully you guys took a language, because then you won't have to go through that trouble. But if you didn't, it's not the end of the world. I did that. Skipping wasn't that bad. At some point, the language tests are just practicing over and over again to get you better at it. It's not really learning anything new. So the next question was, how do you join the San Jose City Council? So we have one staff member who connects us with the rest of the city, and she works in city, and then she goes around and goes to all these meetings and tries to get the youth voice out. This is her email. It's the youthcommission@sanjoseca.gov. Her name is Betty Ramirez. She's fantastic. She's really nice, really helpful, and she loves getting students involved, because for some reason only students in this area like to get involved, not students in like East San Jose. So if you go to school in Limbrook, Westmont, Boynton, Prospect, Mitty, or Harker, those are within my district. You can apply for my youth council. If you go to school anywhere else in San Jose, you can just email her, tell her the school you go to, and ask her which district you're in. If you're in my district, you need to apply to be on the council. Any other district, you can just get in. You can just participate. And it's fairly easy to become a youth commissioner at that point too, because the other districts aren't as competitive, I don't think. If you don't go to school or live in San Jose, I'm pretty sure every city has this. I know for a fact there's a Saratoga Youth Commission, Cupertino Teen Commission. I think there's a Fremont. There's like one in every city. So if you don't have one, you'll just need to do a little bit of Googling and find out which city, like, who to contact to be part of it. So how did I publish my works? I think I talked about this before. This is the specific thing that I used to publish in Imagine magazine, but just literally looking up CTY Imagine magazine submission should get you the same link. For Mercury News, all I did was so if you look at Mercury News, it's a contact us page. I figured out what I was writing about, what section it would fall under, and I just contacted them. So there's like an opinion at San Jose Mercury News, there's like an editorial at San Jose. So I didn't put a link because it depends on what you're publishing. Can I move on?
I have a question. So your funding method. So you said there has 2 schools right now. It's a Miller and Hopkins in Fremont, right?
Mm-hmm.
So can you give details of what's your magazine focus?
Okay, so our magazine has a mission, and the mission is to try to inspire and engage youth in creativity and instilling and fostering like talent and creative growth around younger students. Because something that me and my co-founder thought about was, we thought when we went through school, we kind of just went through the motions. We would go to our classes, they would give us a multiple choice test, and we would have to find the best answer. But something that we didn't think, and I think I read a lot of articles on this too, is that schools don't really foster creativity as much, like thinking outside of the box. And that's something that most students either have the initiative to take or just don't do. So what we did is we wanted to start this program, and we thought by having this literary writing and art program, even if you're not like you're a science or math person, it still helps you think outside of the box in terms of creativity. So we have 2 meetings per month, and one meeting we do an activity about creativity, and we have them do it. Next meeting they come back with a piece they've written or drawn, and we have an editing workshop, and we think it's really valuable for them to edit, because then they get to work back and forth on each other and think, oh, this is, your idea is good, oh, maybe like this is something I could use in my life as well, and it's really good to bounce ideas off each other. That's largely how I did it in my high school. I just like talked to a lot of other students around me, like slight competition but not unhealthy.
How to join the acting? How to join if a kid like?
So if you want to draw, you just come to our meetings and
in the website can see the detailed information.
Yeah, overtureliterarymagazine.com.
And how you made Miller agree to found this magazine in school?
Oh, so how did Miller like agree to let me do it?
Yeah.
Oh, it was really simple. Like I said before, like adults, I think they just love it when students want to do something because I feel like these students are like taking charge of their lives. So we went down, we emailed the assistant principal at the time, and I was part of student council in middle school, so I think she knew me. It doesn't really matter if she knows you or not. I emailed her, I said that we were interested in starting it. She told us to come down and meet at a certain time. We met with her, and pretty much the moment we sat down, she was like, so how are you going to start this magazine? Like already, she was like, we like it. When do you want to start? What do you want to do? So it was really easy because we're providing a free opportunity for their students, and we're devoting our time. So there's really no reason why they would not allow us to do it. And then I talked to my old 8th grade literature teacher and asked her if she could be the advisor for our program. I emailed her, we met with her, we asked what time works best for her, figured out 2 times a month that we thought it was only an hour meeting per, so 2 hours a month out of her schedule. So she was like, okay, I can do that. I think this is a valuable program. And because she was an English teacher, she really liked the fact that we were stressing creative writing, so she let us do it. So now she opens her room up to us, and she's become a lot more involved. She helps us edit the pieces every month. She helps us put it out for publication online, and she's been really involved and really great. Yeah?
Just out of curiosity, was the assistant principal Miss Steele?
Yeah,
oh.
She left though to become an
Yeah.
elementary school principal, yeah.
This year.
But yeah, I like Miss Steele a lot. She joined the year I got to Miller, I think, like my 8th grade or something. So moving on. So someone wanted me to talk about my family background. So I know Amy Chua coined the term tiger parents. My parents are not tiger parents at all. My mom likes to remind me that she's not a tiger parent sometimes. She's like, do you think I'm a tiger parent? I'm like, no. She's like, good. And the reason why she thinks that is because I feel like the term tiger parent means that the parents are doing everything for you. The parents are saying, okay, we found this program that you need to go do. You need to apply for this. You need to take these classes. But I think what my parents did for me was, well, they're both Chinese immigrants, so they moved here in the early 1990s. I think that's similarly to a lot of parents around here. They both work in business or technology, engineers and stuff like that. And yeah, so they were kind of surprised that me and my sister weren't engineers, but whatever. And they didn't tell me, I know a lot of parents around here were like, oh, you should become a doctor, you should become an engineer, and you should become a lawyer. And I'm actually thinking about doing law, but it's not because my parents told me I had to. It's because I think from a young age, I don't know, when I was younger, my parents were a little more strict, because kids don't really like to do anything at that age. So they forced me to do my homework. And then I would get really used to my homework, and I would have to write complete sentences for everything. So they told me that I couldn't just do the bare minimum. I had to actually do it well. In middle school, my mom would always ask me if there were opportunities there, so I would go look for them. I decided, oh, student council sounds pretty fun, because I was president of my elementary school, which isn't a big deal at all because you don't do anything in elementary school. But I was president of my elementary school, so I was I like to do student council. So I did student council, and she helped me with that. And then my dad was always the one who kind of sometimes my mom would get a little overeager, so my dad is the one that kind of calms her down a little bit. So I think it's a good balance. So, and then going on to high school, what my parents really told me was that I just need to do things. They didn't tell me you need to do this activity or you need to do this activity, but they told me I had to do stuff. And my mom, every day, she's really into reading stuff online, so she would always come home and tell me stories about people. She would tell me about Sheryl Sandberg, the CEO of Facebook, and how Sheryl Sandberg she sits at the head of the table, and she doesn't care if other people don't think she belongs there. She'll sit there. And she would tell me about I don't know, how like other people just didn't, like there's like a VP of Google or something who like majored in English at Brown University, got out and started doing business and didn't really care about the money that she was making. So I think she just told me a lot of like different stories about like what kind of inspirational things people are doing, trying to make me inspired instead of saying you need to do this. Because like what I hope like that parents like don't get away when they leave is come back home and be like, you need to take these classes and do this summer camp. Because if your child isn't interested in it, they're not going to want to do it, and it'll just make them resent studying more, I think. So what I did was, at least, I know my sister really liked history. My mom was the one who looked online and helped her find this Concord Review paper, and it helped her find this publication. So I think parents should take more of like an assistance role. You should inspire your children to want to do something, figure out what their passion is, and then help them with it. So my mom, when I told her I liked essay competitions, she also helped me find a bunch of them too. And then I would find them on my own, and then sometimes she would find things I've already found, and be like, oh, whoops, and just like keep going on. And yeah, it was just like in that sort of way, I think. They never really was like, why are you not doing like math club? Like why, like math is so important. Although my mom did stress from a young age that public speaking and writing were important, because she told me that, and I think this is true, no matter what job you do or no matter what competition you participate in, like you need to know how to do it. Like when you job interview, you need to know how to do it. If you do science fair presentations, you need to know how to present. So I guess that somewhat influenced me to do a lot of public speaking, but I don't think that she forced me to do it in any way. I think it was mostly of my own accord that I decided I wanted to do it, and then she just was there to help me. And then my dad was there to try to, so if my mom got overeager, he would like help me relax, and he would tell me that like I sometimes needed to get out of the house and like needed to hang out with people because I was like in my house for too long. And I assume that if I did, sorry, I'm going really over time, but I assume if I did, my grades did lapse at any point, they would stress me harder and like be like, you need to do it. But they were always asking me about like my grades. They never checked my grades myself. Like they didn't have my password to like my own school account or anything. But they would ask me like, are your grades okay? And I would be like, yes. And if they weren't okay, then they would be like, you should study. And my sister, I know, sometimes struggled with like science courses or math courses, so my dad would tutor her a lot. And he wouldn't like force her to do hundreds of problems, but when she needed help, he would come and he would sit there for her with like hours and help her tutor her to get her the A. So they would just like help us with what we needed, and they made us comfortable by I think asking them for help instead of being scared that they would get mad at us if we like said we needed help on something. I think my mom, she always tells me this too. She's like not mad if I don't do well. She's mad if I don't try to do well. So if I like don't do anything, she gets mad. But if I tried it and like I tried out for like several things that sometimes I didn't get, she wouldn't get mad about that because like at least she knows I tried. And sometimes like if you try more, then like you just like succeed in certain things. And I think that's what it did. So I guess like that's how my parents influenced me. I don't know if you guys have any more questions on that front. I don't know. My mom like sometimes helped me find summer programs too that I would like that I decide I liked or I didn't like.
So what activities you think that you really missed that you didn't do?
Activities
right, other than
missed.
because I mean, look, I don't know how much motivation the activities that you did was partially motivated by getting to college. With some other activities that maybe have nothing to do with college admission that you think that you might have missed?
I think, like, obviously I always had in the back of my mind, like, oh, this would be good on college apps, but I think, like, first of all, like, for the most part, I enjoyed the things I did. I liked doing them, and that's why I, like, wanted to pursue them further. But some activities I wish I did was, let me think about this. I kind of wish I participated in the school newspaper, because it seems like a good activity and, like, good thing, like, I know people who do it like learn so much about like doing things on a deadline because you have to get it out. You have to work late. Sometimes they stay there until 9 p.m. trying to get the paper in. And it's first like newspaper is a huge time commitment. So if your student doesn't actually like doing it, maybe they shouldn't because people I know who do newspaper hardly do anything else because it takes up so much time. But I think you learn a lot from having to produce something every month no matter what. And having to like write stories and having to edit them and having to work with other students to come up with like a product. I also think I wish I did like science competitions and science research earlier on. I know I ended up going like a different route, but I didn't actually know people did science research until junior year, and by that time it was a little too late to add something on my plate. But I wish that if I had like pursued that a little further, because especially schools around here have fantastic resources for those programs, and they have a lot of, like, there's teachers who are super helpful, they have a lot of resources to help you get other opportunities. I hope I would have done that as well. In addition, I used to do dance, and I used to do piano and flute, And I regret a little bit like quitting them because I just didn't have the time anymore to practice. And I would go to a class and the teacher would be like, "Did you practice?" And I'd be like, "No." Which I think is true for a lot of students. But I do wish I did it a little more, and I would have definitely like done it. I'm definitely going to start up again in college. And one other thing is I wish I did computer science, which is something that a lot of students do around here. I, for one, did not know this existed until sophomore year. And by that time, everyone else around me was just so advanced in computer science. Like something on my sheet about valuable activities is IOI. It's like International Olympiad for Informatics or something. And someone in my school who's going to Harvard got first place in the international like computer science competition and got a perfect score. And he had started doing computer science from 7th grade, learning from his brother and his parents. And I wish I'd done that because I think it's a very valuable skill, especially like in this day and age with the computers being so like powerful, and like I think it really like is the technology of the future. If I had been a little more informed about that when I was younger. But lucky for me, I'm going to Stanford and they have a good computer science program, so I'll just learn there.
So, how many years of piano you had, and did you take any, which level?
So I started piano when I was 6. I quit sophomore year, I think. So I did it for about 10 years. I got to the level 10 advanced, like CM testing, but I never did like a piano competition. So I was never like that good at piano. I just kind of enjoyed doing it and I was like decent at it, but it wasn't like to the level to take me to like be able to send in a CD or anything. So I understood like my limitations in that area. But I do enjoy it. I think it's like good to have something you enjoy. For like lucky for me, like what I enjoyed was writing, which happened to be useful for college apps too. But if you're a child like enjoys doing something, I think that's really good. Like I know someone who's going to Princeton this year. He did volleyball all 4 years. He didn't like win any special awards. He was just on a team, which maybe wasn't that helpful. But it was a really good way for him to not only stay in shape, but also for him to relieve stress. Like his exercise is a really good way to relieve stress. So he was like an amazing math person. He like was 1 point away from making USUMO. He did a bunch of math competitions. He made USUMO this year. But like him doing volleyball was something he enjoyed because he could work with other people who weren't necessarily always about academics and like meet a lot of people and just like have fun at times. And it's like good to do a sport, obviously. I just like am physically incapable. I wish I could do a sport.
Your dancing is kind of physical, right?
Dance is physical, yes. I was part of Chinese Dance Academy. It's like on Stevens Creek, I think, or something. But I only did it for fun too. Like I went to Italy to perform with them once. Like it was really cool. It's at St. Mark's Square in Venice, and I did that like when I was in 7th grade. But as I got older, like I didn't join the dance team at Lonebrook because they take up so much time. Like they practice all the time. So I just couldn't fit that in my schedule as well. But it definitely is a good physical exercise. And I know someone who got into Stanford actually last year, and her parents owned that studio. She talked about how dance was a huge part of her life as a way to get in, because it also made her unique from other applicants.
Just one more question about this part. The level 10 on piano is very good. Did you write down on your Common App?
I wrote it in the additional information section at the very bottom.
Oh.
Because I think that lots of students achieve it, and it doesn't make it that special. I don't think it's something that stands out for me. Like it was an achievement for me, so I included it, but it wasn't like a focus in my application. I think if I hadn't put it there, it wouldn't have made too much of a difference. But I do think it maybe would have helped a little bit because it showed that I did do other non-academic things at times. Like I did play piano and I did play flute. But I don't think it was like a huge deciding factor. So the next question was about time management and how did I arrange my 4-year high school study schedule. Like I said before, 9th grade is not too early. I knew in general what classes I was going to take by 9th grade for the rest of high school, just because I knew what I liked and I knew what was offered. My sister was helpful because she had already gone through the process, so she knew the classes there. How did I arrange it? I always like did my homework first. Like I remember like when I took calculus, it was 2 to 3 hours of homework a day. So I knew if I didn't do it like first, I would have a bunch of other things to do, and then I would be up until really late doing it because it takes forever. So I would go home, first thing I would do was get it on my desk and do my calculus homework and finish it. And I'd be done by like 5 p.m., which is good because then I had a lot of time to do other things that weren't necessarily as time consuming. I think like subjects that require more brain power, like physical brain power, like math and science should be done earlier probably, because if you're really tired, it's hard to think about it. When you're really tired about essays, like I write most of my essays when I'm tired because I think it forces me to go faster and it gives me inspiration preparation until we move on. And you're most creative when you're like subconscious. So I did that first. I was in math and science first. I did my extracurriculars at night because they're typically more flexible. I have to get my schoolwork done. Otherwise, I won't be ready for the next day, and I won't be ready for the test, and I won't be able to do well in them. So I always did my schoolwork first, and academics is number one. And then my extracurriculars, I arrange them around my own schedule because in general, they're more flexible, I think. Like, you can do it one day or you can do it another day, and it doesn't make too big of a difference. So what I would do is I would typically do speech and debate next. Like, I would do my speech and debate obligations because it was such a big team, so I had to do something. Writing I did whenever I was free. Overture was a very structured thing. Like, I would have meetings two times a month, and at the end of each month, they would all submit their essays or their pieces, and I would edit them and send it back. So that what I would do on a weekend, I guess. I don't really know what this question means exactly because I can't talk about what I did every day. But if you guys have like more specific questions about time management.
What's your bedtime?
Oh, so I slept pretty late, not because I wasn't done with my work, but because I like to be on the computer and watch TV. So, up until junior year, I would sleep from midnight to 1 each day. Junior year, I slept at about 1 or 1:30, which is like very late, I know, and it's not good. And I definitely could have not done that, but I really like to be on the computer, so I made that sacrifice on my own time. And senior year, to be honest, I slept fairly late. I think my school didn't start until 8:30, so because I didn't take those first period, because I wanted to sleep. So I slept at 2 every day. On really busy days, sometimes I'd sleep at 3, but that was really bad, and then I would come home and take a nap. But what I think is like, it depends on like what kind of person you are. I work best at night. I like to say that my golden hour is at 2 a.m. because that's when I write best. Like at 2 a.m. I take out my computer and start writing. And I like to sleep in really late. So on weekends, I had a tendency to sleep in until like 1 p.m. sometimes because I was just really tired. But other people I know cannot sleep in late and they can't like sleep late. So sometimes they'll do their work in the morning, like their extracurricular work in the morning, go to school, do their homework, and then sleep early. And so their schedule was just shifted up a few hours. So because I like to stay up late and I like to sleep late, that's just the way I found out my schedule to work.
Average, how many hours you need to spend on your speech and debate activity?
To be honest, not that much. People like think it's super time consuming.
Yeah.
It's time consuming if you make it time consuming. So, for example, I said that I would really have wished I joined spontaneous speaking to get better at speaking on the spot. That's spontaneous, so you don't really do preparation for it. Like you go to the practices and you like practice speaking on the spot, and whenever you go to a tournament, you don't do preparation because you have to speak on the spot. So it doesn't really matter. I did a form of debate that was more time intensive. So I would do a lot of stuff when I went to practices. So practices were like twice a week, 2 hours each week, or 2 times each week, so it's like 4 hours a week, which I'm sure most kids spend more time than that on their computers doing nothing. So that's time you could easily spend on speech and debate. And sophomore year, I was very involved. I went to like 15 debate tournaments, so I spent like 15 weekends on this. But most people don't go to that many tournaments. I just really enjoy tournaments, so I did that. And it really depends. Like I know lots of people who do tons of different activities, and they just do speech and debate not as their main activity, but as a side activity, because they like to like foster their speaking and writing abilities. Like I said, like the guy I know going to MIT, which isn't really related to speech and debate, he was really good at biology, but he was also a state champion of his specific event in speech and debate, and he was just able to manage his time because he just learned how to speak well. And from once you get past like those basics, it doesn't take up that much time at all because you know the technique. You just need to go to tournaments now.
Thank you.
Most time is spent in the beginning learning how it works. Any other questions about time management? Okay, so what made Stanford admit me? So I can't know for sure, obviously, but I talked to my admissions officer during admit weekends, and also Stanford does this really cool thing. Stanford, Harvard, and Yale all do this. I don't know, I think Princeton does it too. Well, if they accept you, their regional admissions officer writes you a little letter at the bottom of your acceptance letter telling you why they liked you. And it's one really good like recruiting tactic because it makes people want to go to your school if they wrote something for you. And secondly, like it lets you know like what was special. So what they wrote for me was they liked Overture and they liked speech and debate and they liked the personality that came out in my essays. So they liked Overture because they thought it was amazing how I did something like that they didn't think anyone else. She was my regional admissions officer, so she only read stuff in Northern California. So most people don't do that in Northern California. So she read that and was like, this stands out so much. And she loved how I took the initiative to go to Overture and start this program from scratch. Like, it didn't exist at all. We went over and established it. She liked how I had taken that experience, like with writing and stuff, to speech and debate, and how I helped other students in speech and debate as well, because I would spend a lot of time at practices like tutoring students and helping those students, and I think my speech and debate supplemental letter probably talked about that. In addition, she really enjoyed how, she didn't actually talk about my publication writing that much, which was surprising, but she liked in general how I did so many academic things and took those academic things and added a service component to it. So not only did I do speech and debate and writing, but I helped other students with speech and debate and writing. So it was like the same activities, but I had different branches within that activity as well. So I pursued the same passion in many different ways. And she liked my essays because she thought they were like quirky and interesting and like not anything most people wrote about. So Stanford's essays are one, talk about something that had an intellectual vitality or growth. And nobody knows what intellectual vitality means. Second of all, write a letter to your roommate. And third, write about something that's important to you. So when I was talking to my guidance counselor, I wanted to write about how words were important to me and how I enjoyed writing. And then she was like, that's kind of generic. You can see that in your application already. And I don't really like the way you wrote this. I was like, oh. And she was like, what do you actually like? And I thought about it, and I was like, I like fried chicken. So she was like, I think it would be amazing if you could write an essay on food. So I was like, okay. I don't really know what that means. So I wrote an essay on food, and then what I did was I changed it. So instead of just being like, here's a list of food I really like, I talked about how I thought food like brought people together. So I was like, I experienced a lot of different things. Like I go to China, and my grandparents always like welcome me with this like big pile of shrimp because they know I like shrimp. Whenever my sister comes home from college, we go to this favorite restaurant that we have, and I order this like chicken that I really like. And whenever I have an annual camping trip that I do, and when I go camping, we always make the same like avocado, lettuce, and shrimp wraps. We wrap it up and we make it ourselves and we just eat it, and it tastes really good. And then it was something that I think was unique because most people, I would assume, when they say what matters to you, they'll write about one of their activities. They'll write a commissioner said she liked about me. And she made like little jokes throughout like the thing that she wrote too. So I think she's a lighthearted person, and I try to make my essays a little lighthearted as well. So I think we kind of clicked on that level as well. But like I said before, like your admission officer only reads for your region. Sometimes maybe they'll talk to other people, but someone in New York does not know my application. They accept people within our region. So it's how you compare it to students around here, which is why it's statistically harder to get in here than it is to get in other places, because the Bay Area is so high achieving. So people talk about that all the time. That's why they talk about like socioeconomic, like affirmative action, like racial affirmative action. It's because like the way they do regional admissions. Also, I asked the Stanford admission officer how they admit people, and she said that they're not allowed to tell me. So I guess like that's sort of private. But in general, it's like I know like the structure that they do it.
Did you have to go for an interview?
So Stanford doesn't do interviews in this area. I did interviews for other colleges, and it was really useful to be able to, I guess, communicate. Yeah, because I think in interviews, I think people put a little too much importance on interviews, like. Because not everyone gets an interview, first of all. It's randomly selected who gets one. So it doesn't really matter if you get one or not. It probably helps a little if you do. But it's kind of just to see like if you're able to communicate with other human beings, I think. And more of a way for you to ask any questions about the school. I don't think they can put too much of an emphasis on it because of the fact that it is like optional. Like not everyone gets one.
So I just wonder, with your achievement and background, did you get in any of the other like schools in East Coast?
Yeah, I got into several Ivy League schools as well, but I went to like admin weekends, and I knew like I wanted to be at Stanford, so I was like Stanford. I liked it a lot. Like, it's a really open, welcoming environment. It's not cutthroat. Everyone's really intelligent. They're all really creative, and it's good weather. So yeah, I'm going really over time. Sorry. So how did I reach out to all the activities? I talked about that already. I just like took the initiative. I emailed people. I decided I didn't have a creative writing outlet when I was in middle school, so I started one for other people. I joined everything from freshman year and figured out what I liked from there on. Was I always a top student? I think I always did well. I know her sister, or her daughter, sorry. I know her daughter, we've been friends since like elementary school. I always like did my homework. I did like well in elementary school. I got B's in PE in middle school, but that was it. Embarrassing. But I got A's in like other subjects in middle school, and it's not necessarily like that, but I think it's like because from like a young age, I was like instilled how to work and how to like work hard and something. I didn't have to cram. I didn't have to all of a sudden become hardworking in high school. It was already a routine. The same way like taking the SAT was a routine for me already, so it wasn't really a problem.
Can we test your GPA?
So I had a 3.978. I got 1 B in PE freshman year. But I got A's in all my other subjects, but I got a B in PE freshman year, so that's why I am 0.2 away from a 4.0. Or 0.022.
What is your weighted or unweighted?
Limburg doesn't do weighted GPA, so it's only at a 4.0. They weight all classes equally, so I had a 3.978.
Even the AP class weighted the same?
It's not weighted, yeah. But it doesn't matter because like colleges, if you're not weighted, then they just look at what classes you took. So it doesn't really make a difference. In addition, PE doesn't actually matter. It's a little bit of a hurt on my ego that I got a B in PE, but other than that, like colleges don't, like I don't think they care that I got a B in PE. They care about academic subjects. Like they're not recruiting me to be an athlete, so it doesn't matter. But for academic subjects, it matters. I think for pretty much any other subject besides PE, it matters. I just got lucky to get my my B there. So what are the most important school years? I don't think I can say that. I think they're all important. I think if you slack for 1 year, then you're going to be behind. I don't know, like high school is definitely the most important. If you can somehow motivate yourself to be hardworking in high school, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, for the school years, senior year, if you slack in senior year, that's going to be a problem. Because that's when all your activities come together. That's when your college applications do. I know tons of people who got like a fake syndrome known as senioritis. And we like to say second semester seniors get senioritis because we just don't want to work anymore because we're done. But I know a lot of people who get this like syndrome first semester and they just don't want to do their college applications. So they just kind of don't do them. And then in December, they freak out and they spend all of winter break cramming their applications. So that's definitely not good. Like senior year, you have to keep it up. Junior year, I'd also say is really important because that's when I solidified my activities. Like that's when I figured out this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my high school years. Freshman and sophomore year was more of an experimentation period to see what I was going to do. Junior year, I solidified, and then senior year, I like took it beyond to like reach out more. 2 more questions. So, do I have any suggestions for someone who's a shy personality? I don't know. My parents told me my sister used to be shy until I came along and I talked a lot, so I forced her to talk a lot with me, so she became less shy. But I think it's not necessarily shyness. It's like, I'm sure like anyone who has a shy personality still has friends in which they talk a lot with. So it's not like they're just like uncomfortable talking immediately, but if they like find a community that they do enjoy, like I know shy people who are in speech and debate and they talk a lot in speech and debate because they feel comfortable where they are. So if they find a comfortable like thing that they like to do, then I don't like think you remain shy. Like I'm not sure. Like I think anybody who's like shy has friends that they talk a lot with anyway. They just don't talk a lot to other people. I would say joining speech and debate is probably helpful in terms of learning how to talk. And how can I stand out at competitions? If they really don't want to do speaking competitions, you don't have to do them. Like not all speaking only speech and debate and like a couple of other activities. But if they're like more academic, they can just like what I said before, like they don't want to apply for officer positions because they don't want to talk to people. They can do like academic writing, they can do research, and they can like do those sort of things. Like things that are, I guess, a little more independent. They can do math competitions that are you just sit at your desk and you like write. So things like that, which I guess are a little bit less like interactive based. But I do think it's important to communicate in the end, even if you become someone math or someone sciencey.
So for speech debate team, most are associated with your school or they are independent?
Most of them I would say are associated with my school. I know some people who debate independently because their school doesn't have a program, so they hire their own coach and they do programs that way, which is also possible. A little more difficult, not impossible. Some of the best debaters I know in the country do it that way because they took the initiative to do it because they wanted to do speech and debate. So they do really well at it. They took the initiative to find the coach and participate. They didn't just join a club on campus. Are sports important? I think sports are the same as anything else. You can't just join a club and like be part of it. Like being like a member of FBLA is not going to do anything for you because you're just a member. Same thing. Like I think like being like a member of like a sports team probably helps a little more because you have to make it onto the sports team. They know that it takes a lot of effort to exercise all the time. They know that you probably have discipline because you have to go to practices all the time. You have to work, and you don't really get a choice of whether you want to or not because that's the way sports work. But I don't think I think if you're really good at it and you really enjoy it, it's worth time. Personally, I would not have joined the sports team because I wasn't good enough at it, and it's a huge time commitment I didn't want to make. But I know someone who's at MIT right now got in for volleyball, and he was just on the volleyball team. I don't even think he was captain, but he was really good at it. He sent in a video to the MIT volleyball coach of himself playing volleyball, and he didn't get recruited, but the moment he got in, his volleyball teacher sent him an email being like, you should join our team. So if you can do something like that, that's good too. Like I said, it doesn't really, it's like, nothing's like important to apply for college, it depends what you do with it. Sorry, I went 40 minutes over time, because I like to talk. So, that's like all I have. If there's anything else that you guys like have questions with, I don't know, that's my email. W is my middle name, it's my mom's maiden name, which is like KWTN. Yeah. Is there anything else?
So it looks like you planned very well for college, high school. Do you have any plans for your 4 years for Stanford? I mean, what is your plan? So what do you want to get out of Stanford?
So what I'm going to do is, I don't know the extracurriculars at Stanford yet, because I'm going in all by myself. I didn't have anyone there to tell me about it, because it's like a completely new environment. I didn't grow up with these people since middle school. So I'm spending this summer to research a little bit more about the opportunities. I emailed a couple of professors when I got in, asked to sit in on their classes, and they let me. I accidentally fell asleep in one of them because it was really hot, but and then afterwards they talked to me about their class, they talked to me about what Stanford was like, and that's something else that really helped my decision as well. And I think that there's certain, I don't think I'm going to be doing, I don't know what I'm going to be doing in college necessarily. I'm thinking of either doing business or law, because those are things I really enjoy as well, and there's things that writing and talking are really useful for. So I think I'm going to write for an undergraduate law journal. I kind of want to be an editorialist on the newspaper, meaning I'm not going to be on the newspaper itself because it takes too much time, but if I want to, I'll have my own thing that whenever I want to write, I can publish on it. I'm also going to experiment in computer science and science to see if maybe I actually like that more, if I just didn't know it yet. But right now I don't, because I'm still in the process of creating my schedule for those 4 years. Yeah.
So you don't know what you're gonna be at?
I don't know what I'm gonna be, and I don't think it's a problem to not know what you're gonna be. I think I know some people who from 3rd grade knew he was gonna be a doctor, and now he's going to, he knew his Facebook URL is something, facebook.com/ his name MD at the end. He already knows. And he researched at Stanford's medical facilities. He is going to Stanford. He was an Intel finalist, and he researched medical pulmonary hypertension. I don't even know what that is, but that's what he did. And I think if you know that, that's good, but I don't think it's a problem at this stage to not know. I'll go to college and I'll figure out. Most people change their majors in college too, is the thing. So even if you think you know right now, you probably don't. Yeah?
So when you applied to Stanford, didn't you have to pick your major?
Mm-hmm. So I did a mix. It depended on which college. I did a mix of I did political science, I did English, and I did economics, because they're all things I thought were applicable to the things that I was doing. That's why I said I think choosing your major is not super crucial, but it's good to put, you don't want to put undecided, because then it just looks like you just stuck your fingers in everywhere without an idea of what you're doing. So like I said before, you want to tell a story, you want some sort of passion. So if you don't do that, and you don't put a major down that's applicable to what you're doing, then they'll think you're just doing them for the sake of doing them. So I think choosing a major is really important. Also, I know a lot of people who get into different colleges because they choose unusual majors. Like I said, some girl who's at Stanford right now chose East Asian Studies because her mom and her parents owned that dance company. So she was really immersed in the Chinese culture because they did Chinese dance. She performed in China, and that's what she chose. And it's something Stanford hardly ever sees, so it was interesting to them. I know people who are going in for arts, and she participated. She started a foundation to sell her art to help people who are going deaf because she has a disability as well. And that's what she did, and that was something that was interesting to them, even though she didn't take part in that many academic things or anything.
So in your high school, except all those academic things, what did you do for fun, and how much time a week did you spend on this?
I ate a lot. So what I did was, because I really wanted to relieve stress some way, especially after I got my license or before I got my license, every day I would go out to eat lunch with somebody. Or not every day, because that's a lot of food, but at least like twice a week, I would say. Like I would always go out to eat lunch with someone before I went home, and that would have a way to like have a break in between my studies and my school, hang out with people, talk, laugh, eat good food, be happy because I ate good food, and then go home and like do whatever I need to do. I also like use the computer a lot, so I'm always like on my email and like on Facebook. Like unfortunately, I think Facebook probably did suck a lot of my time away, but I also found some of my opportunities from Facebook. Like someone would post like, oh my god, look at this thing, and I'd be like, oh that's cool, and I like apply for it. I know the way we advertise for Youth Advisory Council is through a Facebook event now, because everybody's on Facebook all the time. So it's like useful to be on the computer all the time, but I don't know. It's like a balance, definitely. I probably was on Facebook a little too much for my own good, but it wasn't, I guess it was like okay. What else did I do? I didn't really exercise, and I wish I did. Now I created a schedule for myself this summer where I'm forcing myself to exercise at least 3 times a week. Because not only is everyone at Stanford super athletic, so I don't want to be the only one who's not, but also I think it's become a very good way to relieve stress. Like I swam 124 laps yesterday, and it was like, I felt really good after I was done. It's like another like little sense of accomplishment. I do think reading is probably like really important. I know these are all very generic things, but they're true. Like, the reason why like colleges, even if you're like science or math, they force you to read like certain books is because they think that these books like have knowledge or like information that's very crucial. So the books I read in AP Literature were fantastic. I read Crime and Punishment, and it was like written by a Russian author, translated, and my teacher would talk to me about it. It had a lot of like morals and like life lessons even inside it, like in a book of literature, and I think I learned a lot even from just reading those. And I just liked reading. I reread all of Harry Potter this summer too. And I just like liked it. It was like a flashback to childhood. I enjoyed it. I also, like right now I'm like focusing a lot. It's just like, I think hanging out with friends is probably like really important. It's a good balance. You cannot like physically sit in a chair for 10 hours and just study. Like I just can't focus. So that's why I have a lot of activities to it. It forces me to get outside and go to their like meetings and stuff. So I just can't sit at home for too long. I get bored. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, about the Stanford Youth Council action. How many spots in this on the youth?
It's gotten a lot more selective lately. Ever since I joined, because for some reason I thought it was really important to publicize, and we got too many applications, so it got difficult. So when I joined, it was a little over 50%. Our last application cycle was like 20% maybe. There's technically we can admit as many students as we want, but we only want about 25, so it's manageable. We can keep track of them all. We try to have a diversity of schools, so we're trying to branch out to schools that aren't like Lynbrook and Hartford right now because we have so many. We still do accept students from there, but probably only maybe 2 to 3 from Lynbrook this year in this application cycle, which isn't impossible because we're trying to limit our advertising of Youth Advisory Council so that not that many students apply for it. So only the students who actually took the initiative to find it would like do it. So we think that's the people that we really do want. Do you have any other questions?
Do you have like friends in Harker? Or if you so?
I do have friends in Harker.
Yeah. What do you think? What's the difference between Harker and St.
Harker and Lynbrook, or Harker? Okay. Harker is a lot more. I think Harker provides more resources for their students. So Harker, I know, like has like college counselors on campus to like help them with their stuff. They have a lot of resources for their math and science, and their debate team has like 10 coaches on it because they have so many resources. I do think it's good and a bad thing because one, the students have more things that they could do on campus. They can take more classes. There's more selection of classes. They can take APs earlier. I can't take them until junior year at Lynbrook. I do also think that it kind of makes students expect that things will just be handed to them. I think something else good for me for going to a public school without many resources but still high achieving was I saw a lot of other students reaching out to get new things and like finding their own things that taught me that to do it too. So even if I go to Stanford, which has lots of resources, they'll probably hand everything to me anyway, I'm still gonna know how to like reach out and find my own things, which I'm gonna need to do later on when I graduate. So I like don't regret going to Lynbrook. A lot of people find it too stressful. I had a really good time, so I had fun. I liked it. And I think that their opportunities are there. People just have to look for them a little more. Especially guidance counselors. Like, I applied for scholarships this year too because like college is kind of expensive. And I would like talk to her, and every time a new scholarship would pop up, she would email it to me. And so like she would give me scholarships to look for too. And I ended up applying to a ton. And it's just resources like that that they're all there. They're on the website, on Lynbrook's website, but nobody ever checks their website is the problem. Oh. Yeah. I'm like an hour over time.
Yeah. 我们谢谢
Kimberly 哈，
We
他
don't
每
pay
人
all
说
the
2个小时，
time.
讲了3个小时，那3个人没有付钱呢，我想，还有一个人付了20块，我们是30块的哈，大家知道他这个是物有所值的。
我交的钱呢？我交了30块钱。
我知道，大多数都交了。
还有下午的是吧？
下午
是那个王交。
对的。
小刘，你这个要关掉吗？
还是不同的他都可以教，不是有好多种啊？那个有 exam，它是 forum，有 Lincoln Class，它是 focus 就。
Oh yeah, it is.